and welcome back to week number 2, day number 1 of the EMEA Swiss bracket. I'm JMac. Still joined with me is Inbound as we get ready to hop into our second set. But before we do that, I just want to give everybody in chat a reminder: if you use exclamation point access, that's ACCESS, we're giving away SMITE 2 codes, whether you're playing on Steam, Epic, PlayStation 5 in North America, or in EMEA, or if you're playing on Xbox, we have codes available for all of our platforms available. So again, use exclamation point access. That will get you a code to get in the game. It won't come with all the cool benefits of having a Founders Edition, but if you get in there and you decide, hey, I kind of like this game, I'm having a lot of fun with it and want to upgrade later, you can also do that in game. And maybe just get your friends to come join in and get some extra codes as well. Maybe if you've got a couple of extra Twitch accounts, just give them multiple codes. That way you can give them to your friends if they don't have a Twitch for some reason in the day and age of 2024. So again, exclamation point access in the chat to get yourself a code to play some Smite 2. As we get ready to jump into our second game of the day, we watched one of our top teams already inbound in Team Risk against Chase the Enemy just a little bit earlier. And in the bracket and kind of showing and reflecting where things have been happening, we had one of our off-air games actually just at the same time. Scorps found a 2-0 over Project Win just in the middle of that kind of interim for us. But another top team that we're going to be watching, and it's going to be our second match here today, Smokebreak and Tithonic. Now, Tithonic in week number 1 of Open Bracket managed to find themselves in that top 4 spot. And it's not entirely, a group of no-names with their team, but it was one that kind of felt a little interesting to see, like, okay, where did these guys kind of come from? But then you look back at some of the brackets and you realize a little bit later who was knocked out a little bit earlier in the bracket, teams like Mockingbird, Yoda Gang, Scorps as well. But now looking at our schedule for today and the EMEA schedule just in general, we, as mentioned, already saw Team Risk. They got the 2-0 against Chase the Enemy. Now it's Smokebreak and Tithonic for our 1 p.m. matchup. And then we've got 2 more EMEAs happening tomorrow on air. Titans Reloaded, Giovanni Giorgio, and then Mockingbird and Yoda Gang kind of round out EMEA. And then, as mentioned, all of those matches on the right side are still happening. They're just not happening on our screen. So maybe if you find somebody else who's jumps in and spectates those matchups. I know that Hazer sometimes on his channel, I'll just give him a shout out, is sometimes watching those matches that aren't happening on our broadcast. That way he can be able to get some coverage over there. And then sometimes other people are just kind of generally watching here. So make sure you're tuning in for all of the EMEA action. And then, as mentioned earlier in the day at 3 p.m., on a hard start of 3 p.m., unless, this game and set rolls a little bit later into it, we'll be starting up North America, which will have a couple of games today and a couple of games tomorrow as well. But Smokebreak and Tithonic. Tithonic is a team that was able to kind of break into the top 4 in week number 1 of Open Bracket. Week number 2, they found themselves kind of in that top 8, top 16 range, just because as you get a little bit higher, you kind of start squishing up against some of the other teams you have to play up against. But now having to go up against Smokebreak, who is a team inbound that is kind of seen as that top 2, top 3 right now, probably in that number 2. I'm curious as to how Tithonic in the picks and bans will kind of adjust to play against Smokebreak for their matchup. And at least earlier today, from what we've already seen, such a heavy priority of Odin.
Yeah, a lot of Odin prio. We've seen a little bit of Fenrir bans. We saw an Anubis. It didn't do too well, but it was banned in the first game. And Tithonic leading off with this Neath ban, which has a little bit of flex potential. So I like the little throwaway. When you're in this first pick slot, you kind of decide how you want these P's and B's to go. Do you want to ban something that's just super strong and like first pick? No, you want to ban something that is a flex pick, something that can kind of get picked and just is feeling good. Odin now banned by Smokebreak, widely considered one of the best gods in the game. And Tithonic locking in the Anubis, which is, again, something that we saw last game. It didn't go too well, but this character's gotten a lot of massive buffs. He is very, very similar to how he was in Smite 1. Slightly different passive, makes him really tanky, a lot more lifesteal for free, and then just a buff to nearly every base ability in his kit. It's going to be interesting to see where they put him. We saw him in solo last game. I still like him more in mid. It's just a much safer spot for him.
And it really felt like his soul lane matchup was just one that was geared to dealing with an Anubis. You have a lot of lifesteal. What's the best way to deal with it? Put somebody that just has inherent anti-heal in their kit with that Bacchus. I think now seeing that Bacchus Athena is drafted, this Anubis probably doesn't want to be anywhere near a side lane. I think you're right to kind of pin that this should probably be geared more towards the mid laner. And there's enough veteranship from tenure of their Smite 1 era as far as some of the players here. Raffer, Ice Ice, Gunter, you probably recognize a few of those names there. Nil and Emmanuel as well for this Tithonic roster. But going up against Smokebreak, I mean, this is formerly known as Deathwalker with Benko, Johnny, Sap7, I Silenced, E-Chrome, and this is a dangerous roster to have to play against here, especially in a 1-0 week. But Anubis, Jing Wei, Fenrir, I mean, these are some pretty powerful picks from Teuthonic, but immediately answered as just triple tank from Smoke Break.
But his voice will be well
triple tank into a Morgan who also can turn into a tank. And it seems like, again, you play these pick style comps, Fenrir, Ares, stuff like that. A lot of times you just see these tanks being played and you buy that Talisman of Purification and it just gives you this big grouping ability to just live this Fenrir bite. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see maybe 2 of them, because we talked about this a lot. It's like beating a dead horse, but there's a lot of cooldown in the game currently. I would not be surprised if this Fenrir itemizes into a lot of that just to be able to capitalize. Uses ult as much as he can, look for picks. Comboing with the Ares, all the more reason. J-Mac, if we see 5 shells on the side of Smoke Break, I'm going to be baffled. We're going to see a lot of beads, and we're going to see a lot of Talisman of Purifications to counter all this CC from Teuthonic.
Yeah, I think Talisman is one that is almost like a guaranteed first item support pick these days, just how much CC is still in there, and with not as many people picking out that Purification. We've seen other teams, whether it be their jungler or maybe sometimes their solo laner, will also go for a Talisman pickup. It depends if they're doing the more like tanky style jungle or if they're doing a burst style. If it's the, I'm going to do a lot of damage jungle, we typically won't see that there, and maybe over towards solo. But throwing in a Loki, I mean, right now, this is an immense amount of CC to have to deal with on the side of Teuthonic, so I would be surprised if we didn't see at least maybe a beads or 2 from Smoke Break, especially given for the gods that maybe don't have a way to deal with those Ares no escapes. Namely, in this case, the Morgan, really. Bacchus can use the Belch, and that'll give him the immunity being pulled from it. So I'm very interested to see what this final pick from Smoke Break is going to be, though. The carries have pretty much been like Jingwei Neath as kind of whatever it's been going down to, but with both those taken on the table, between like On Her and Cernanos, so and maybe I guess Soul, which of those 3 kind of stand out to you for maybe a last pick for Smoke Break?
I've actually really liked On Her after the buff. The passive was changed in Smite 2 to 10 protection shredded over 2 autos. It is now back to the Smite 1 passive of 20 protections at level 1 with just 1 auto. So it is something where that character just feels very good again in laning phase, along with just the minion waves grouping a little bit easier. He's actually able to clear with his 2. The damage is still a little bit lower on the 2, where he doesn't auto clear, but I still just like the early threat of an On Her, pairing him with either the Ymir or the Bacchus. There's a lot of flex potential on the side, and this isn't even ruling out the Morrigan going to the side lane playing ADC. We saw that last game. It is a potential. I do think it's a little less likely because On Her doesn't have that clear that you'd want out of a mid laner to be able to just kind of clear and rotate, but On Her, pair him with either one of these Ymir Bacchuses, a lot of threat in that lane, a lot of kill potential. And then the Athena, I assume, is going jungle. It gives them a lot of rotation power. I also think this Morrigan is going to be very, very strong. So many very strong gods to turn into. Fenrir or Ares. If you want to play slightly more tankier style, but you can turn into that Bacchus. You can use the Athena to ult over, have a double global. So eyes on the Morrigan, in my opinion, for this 5v5, or even in like the middle portion of the game. That's who the most pressure is going to be on for Smoke Break.
And even on Teuthonics end of things, they've still got some CC to worry about. I mean, Athena just having the 1 taunt and Smite 1, if there's an Athena on map, I'm getting beads no matter what. Like, that's just kind of the go-to. But with how long the cooldown is on Purification beads, with maybe kind of how much weaker feeling the taunt is comparatively in Smite 2-1, it hasn't made it kind of as immediate. But then you've got Bacchus, who's got 3 CCs. You got Ymir, who's got a couple of slows and a hard stun, plus a wall that you've got to deal with. And then adding in just On Her and Morgan, there's still enough CC on the side of Smoke Break that I would be surprised if we didn't see any Purification beads in this game from either team. I think it's maybe most important when you are dealing against the likes of Teuthonic that have the Ares, the Loki, and the Fenrir as a big combination. But for Teuthonic, they've probably still got some CC to really worry about on there. So kind of looking at these 2 compositions inbound, what is kind of the state of the game that these 2 are more powerful in? Is this more of like an early game style of composition for Teuthonic? Is this a late game for Smoke Break? Like, where do the strengths lie for these 2 teams?
Until that Loki was locked in, I thought Teuthonic was going to try to run through the early game. Fenrir has a lot of damage, good CC. Anubis, a ton of damage and a good amount of CC. And then Ares to kind of round out that 3v3, that trio grouping. I thought that's what they were going to maybe kind of look for. And then you kind of see what they round out with this Loki. That means Fenrir's going to the solo lane. Assuming Fenrir's going to the solo lane, Loki's playing in the jungle. It kind of switches how you want to play your comp. You kind of want to farm out, maybe play for objectives with the Anubis damage, the Jingwei damage. I would expect for the tankier comp to want to play the slightly earlier game, play through, you know, we have our protections. We want to just kind of force these early fights, play around Ymir wall, play around the CC, because that's something that you've highlighted. I'm going to highlight again. The CC on the side of Smoke Break is how they're going to win this game. Their outright damage is not insane. If you consider burst, Tithonic has probably twice as much burst in their comp as Smoke Break has. But if Smoke Break can get out to a nice little early lead and just avoid getting one shot, it's a very slowly but surely you will all be whittled down and you won't be able to kill any of us. So I'd expect Smoke Break to kind of play that slightly earlier game style, play to kind of snowball a little bit, but the objective damage isn't really there for Smoke Break. Tithonic has the objective damage, so that's how I kind of see the early game playing out. Tithonic avoiding fights, objectives, Smoke Break trying to force fights, and then off of those wins, maybe default to objectives.
So for Tithonic, I'm seeing this through, you know, you mentioned the Fenrir and the Loki both being drafted into here, which means that one of those most likely gonna have to go to the solo lane. Now, take this with a grain of salt, because I'm nowhere near the top level of ranked plays. But I have been seeing some Loki mids sometimes kind of pop up in some of my games, whether it be my casuals or my ranked games. So maybe some potential to see a lot of odd flexibility between these ones. I've also played against some Fenrir solos myself. Not a fun one to play up against, especially if you get, in my situation, I got double invaded. They took red, took blue, and then walked into lane, and I died because there's a Fenrir and he's just really good. So I'm curious as to where Tithonic is going to kind of place these ones. If I'm looking at least kind of the names of the players for this roster, Ice just kind of feels like either a Fenrir or a Loki player, so I don't imagine that they kind of stray from anything awkward amongst there. It's just kind of been the play style that Ice has had for a long time. For Johnny, looking at these gods drafted up, none of these really feel like what I would call the Johnny gods. I mean, when you look at the opposite side, Loki, that's Johnny. Like, if Loki is on screen, that's going to Johnny a million times over. But none of these really, like, scream the pick for him. Like, none of these I'm looking at and going, all right, it's about to be a Johnny show. Like, Johnny Ymir, maybe Johnny Athena is what I'm kind of thinking, but none of them really feel like it fits his playstyle. So I'm really curious where Smoke Break kind of orientates these three tank characters.
I think the more we've seen a Smoke Break, the more they're kind of trying to decide their style. Johnny is mostly a hard carry, farm it out, level 20, will dominate at that point. That's how he made his wins. He got his wins in Smite 1. I do think that Smoke Break as a whole, as a team, they've kind of shifted or had Johnny shift his playstyle to allow him to play slightly tankier things. We saw the Chalk where he didn't build full damage. He built more utility Chalk. The Athena, I think, kind of can do that same thing. More hybrid style, doesn't need to one-shot. It's like he trusts Ecrom and Sap to be able to carry the game in the damage department. Don't get me wrong. Ymir, Bacchus, Athena, well, we'll ignore Athena. Ymir and Bacchus, full tank, still do a boatload of damage. Athena does need to build some semblance of intelligence or strength to do damage, but it's like Johnny doesn't feel like he has all this pressure on him where I want to farm it out and go 20 and then I will carry. It is, I can get my team ahead or I can get the enemy team behind and we can just win through 5v5s, because Smoke Break has not really been just a bunch of good players dominating their individual roles. They have really good macro play, really interesting macro play. I highlighted last game that Lasber uses teleporters really well. Benko from solo lane is one that dominates the teleporter. He's trying to put that on cooldown as much as he can to make those rotations to get Ecrom ahead. So Smoke Break does seem just happier shifting their style and not relying on Johnny to farm up. They're happy playing this overall map play, macro, let's get our entire team ahead or put the entire team behind and win team fights. I think Johnny's kind of shown and evolved as a player, and I think with this pick, it's just showing just how confident they are in each other.
And I'm glad you brought up the teleporters, because that's one thing that we don't really see a lot out of most of the teams in kind of both of these regions. But whenever I think of players who have been utilizing teleports, it has been Benko as kind of the number one that comes to mind. I think Nika a few times as well has kind of jumped on the train of using that teleporter. And then for like North America, Aurora is really one of the only players who are getting super active with it. Maybe sometimes PBM from the support role, but it's not as many solo laners, and even more so when when we kind of highlighted Lasper in the previous set, there aren't really any junglers who are utilizing the power that teleport has. Now, if I remember correctly, coming into this patch, the cooldown of the teleport has been adjusted because of all the base teleporters that are up now. Base teleporter, that's a 210-second cooldown. But I believe now the side teleports have gone from 30 seconds to 60. So you can't teleport as frequently, but making use of those teleports. I mean, by the time it takes you to teleport, walk away from that teleporter, get into jungle, clear that out, and kind of make your sweep across the map, that 1 minute goes by so fast.
Yeah, and you definitely compare it to the 210 seconds from the base one. That's like once or 2-3 times a game that you're really going to be able to use the base teleporter, because it's not going to be that effective when tier 1 towers are dead, but it's always going to be a lot of value going from solo side to duo side of the map. And I think the more we see players play, the more comfortable they get with timings, the more comfortable they'll get playing around, a solo laner being able to make a rotation off of a spike, or even an ADC or a support making the rotation. And every single week that goes by, I do think players just get smarter and better timings with it. The first week we saw teleporter, it was just using it to use it, kind of, and there wasn't really plays being made. But I mean, the most recent smite we've seen was Lasber last game, who, when he used that teleporter, it was very effective. He would teleport over, look for a gank, make a very successful gank, and then they would go get like a gold fury. Or he would farm out one side. As soon as that farm was down, instead of backing and then walking out of base, he would just teleport over to make a play on the other side. So the more we see these players use the teleporter, the more they're going to be used to it, comfortable with it, and be able to play around it. The teleporter is something that it's only been in the game for a month, just over a month. So it is something where it changes how the macro is played, and it's interesting to see what they do with it.
Well, I've got some good news and some bad news. The good news, we still got plenty of Smite 2 to go today, but some bad news is we're going to have to take a quick break before we can get back to that. So make sure you guys are sticking around, and we'll be back and ready to jump into our first game of our second set.
buzzing around, calling all you freaks and nerds. You're just missing what you want. My brother's going down the drain, my sister's living the dream, but everybody's singing along. It's okay, we'll all soon be gone. Hey, what's the matter with the bright red lights? Hey, in the moment when the world went blind, but everything's alright. We don't give a damn this time. My daddy was a gambling man with no strategy. Who gives a shit about him anymore?
Hello, everybody, and welcome back immediately into the action. Apologies for the delay, and you may already notice at the top, first off, it's me, J-Mac, Bobby, and Doug here. You may notice at the top, we're not actually in the Tectonic and Smoke Break game. Right now, they're having an issue trying to get their players back in, and they're trying to figure that out. So instead, we're jumping over to our backup game, which is Threat Level Midnight versus Old and New. And jumping immediately into the action, Threat Level Midnight up 3-1 and about a 2,000 gold lead over Old and New. Fighting around the duo lane inbound, maybe trying to set up for a potential Gold Fury, but right now, Cold is just wrecking this Loki. Has to use the ultimate defensively. Thought he maybe wanted to try and catch there, but Archie was just able to sidestep out of the way, and Cold misses out on that ultimate.
2 ults for one, a good little trade, and actually another fight looking onto Crythonic. Does have double ults available. It doesn't seem to be enough. Wow, that was really close. He kept in range of the chain to keep that damage ticking. No longer do you actually do damage on the pull. It's when you slam down. So if that chain wasn't close enough, he actually would not have gotten the solo. But a nice play by Dutch Whisperer in mid against Cryonic. And like you said, it was 3-1, now 3-2, about a 1,500 gold lead, catching us back up into this game. Something that's sticking out to me, again, J-Mac, the Anubis is in solo lane. Is this like the new thing? Is Anubis now a solo laner after all these changes? Another fight left.
Pulled back in. You dealt with one Ares ult and you said, okay, cool, their Ares ult is down, but you gotta remember there's 2, and you gotta keep your eyes on this Mordred consistently. Cold gets the lockdown. Kane gets the kill. Old and New were down, but certainly not out here. 9 minutes in, are still finding their picks and finding ways back into this game. But to your point about the Anubis solo, I couldn't tell you. Like, to me, tried and true, this god is one that I would see played in mid, and then maybe kind of just as a fun, you throw it in jungle. But it seems these buffs and these changes to his passive are giving him some viability here in solo.
Oh, just like that. Viability in solo, maybe even more than that. Does have this lead about a level and his damage with just this Chronos Pendant. And again, a lot of buffs to cooldown items. I'm pointing out Chronos Pendant because I think it's the one that sticks out the most. It has a ton of intelligence, it's very cheap, and it's 30 cooldown rate, J-Mac. It is an insanely statted item. We're going to see a lot. We even see it on Bacchus solos. I wouldn't be surprised if the Ymir goes it, the Ares goes it, because it is so statted efficiently. And another fight left.
Ooh, Archie with the assist of Valerian, able to pick up one, but the Ares ult's going to pull 2 in the tower, and that's all she wrote for Kane. Goes down alongside Ice Cold. 2 more picks for Threat Level Midnight, and just playing patiently around it. And interestingly enough, like with the changes, some of the tank items that came into this patch, I was kind of sitting there wondering, what is the start for your supports? Breastplate of Valor and Mystical Mail Inbound are not the 2 first items that come to mind when I'm thinking of my support player.
Yeah, it's different, and it's after all these changes to these tank items. Thebes gets a massive nerf, not last patch, but 2 patches ago. It is still a fine item, but the value of a breastplate, a lot of cooldown, a lot of protections, you never run out of mana. Mystical Mail is a ton of damage, it's a ton of health, and a ton of physical protections. And we've even seen Talisman of Purification rushes when you're playing into these heavy CC comps. Support role has kind of changed from Smite 1 to Smite 2. And actually, a hold on that, a Gold Fury is being pulled.
Gold Fury started for Old and New. Valerian gonna try and find a way into this Fury, see if they can steal it, because there is no Sunder. There's no guaranteed. It's all if they can find the damage. Backflip's not gonna do anything. They're gonna get yanked back in. Their beads were still down, but they don't care. They're gonna try and turn and fight this one, but Shell comes in clutch for Olden New. Their support lives. Chase him down, run him down, pull out the bead, and still pick up the kill. And instead, you reposition the enemy team right where they want to be, in the middle of your backline, chasing down your Loki. It'll be a Gold Fury, a couple of picks for Olden New, and they went for that Naga camp as well. Olden New, again, down, but certainly finding ways to crawl back in this game.
And this is kind of the issue I see with the Anubis. He is in a good spot. He is dominating this 1v1, but a full damage solo laner doesn't really rotate and fight in 5v5s, especially one as not safe as Anubis is, as easily as the Ymir. This Ymir, Dagger of Frenzy also. J-Mac, this last patch changed so many items, and there's so many interesting builds so far. We have Intelligence now on Typhons. We have the Dagger of Frenzy, which is now a 30-second cooldown for some attack speed and basic attack damage, I think. It is a cool patch when there are so many changes that we are seeing interesting things like this.
And especially given that, hold on, one kill here. Phantom Shell delays it a little bit longer, but Distortion goes down. And also one kill on the opposite side. Mateo goes, or Matthew? You know what? Matthew sounds funnier, even though that's not actually what it is.
Like Matthew?
Matthew Deus, I think is what it is. But Matthew sounds funnier, and so I'm going to stick with it for a moment. But also going back to the fact that this is a patch that dropped Thursday. You know, normally patches come out on Tuesdays. You get, 3-4 days to really kind of practice on this patch. These players, they started Thursday evening, and for some of these EMEA players, it was Thursday night when this patch had essentially dropped down for them. We're talking 9-10 p.m. at night for some of these players, maybe even more depending on how far east you are over in the European region. And so seeing just what's already developing in a couple of days, it is bringing up a level of intrigue. Pulled back from the no escape, and with no beads, that's an easy kill for the Dutch Whisperer and their teammate Kane, able to pull Cryonic back once more.
Okay, Mac, this is the second time we've seen this Ares Morgan combo, and let me just say, it is disgusting what you are allowed to do with this. You pull beads with one of them, and then the other one comes and kills you. If you don't have beads, the one can just kill you outright, because Cryonic went beads. It's just they're constantly on cooldown. They're constantly getting pulled by somebody. The CC from Ares Ultimate, the CC from Ymir, Valerian getting dove here.
Kane gonna pull another one. Beads this time for Valerian, so not gonna fall victim to the damage of this Ares, or for the pulled CC. I should say that this Ares has available. But now it might be a turn and burn back against Kane. They backed in the enemy jungle and Archie. And the rest of the team is going to find a punish window with that. And it feels like every time that Old and New are finding some kind of fighting way back in inbound, they make a small mistake like this, and the gold keeps sliding ever so slightly back towards threat level midnight. Speaking of backs, can't really call that one a lazy back. They're inside of their own jungle, and unfortunately no valid location for the Jing Wei to land in after ultimate, so now just gonna have to fight the 2v1. Quick dash out, Valerian charges up that World Weaver, belly flop off the mark, but the end hand after to follow up for the kill. Matthew goes down.
And as you said, a nice play by Old and New, followed up by two nice plays by threat level midnight. And this is constantly punches being thrown by both of these teams, but it's always threat level midnight, staying up, not being able to get knocked down. This is a fine spot still for Old and New to be in. They still have this really nice team fighting comp, really nice pick style comp. It is just, this Loki is just finding people either lazy backing, a little too low, or just not by themselves, and Gold Fury being pulled also by team level midnight.
This is Gold Fury number 2 here at the 15.5-minute mark, down to about 2,000 HP, but Old and New can't find a way in. Their mid laner, Dutch Whisperer, just a little too far away to try and stop that one. So another nice little influx of gold to the Order team. Maybe hunting for a bit more. That stealth from the Loki fades out as he crosses the lane and he gets into the bush, so unsure if he was even noticed from the stealth. But why stop at a Gold Fury inbound? I mean, if a Pyromancer is there and Old and New aren't going to step up, you might as well just grab another objective. Can Ice Cold get anything away? No. Distortion gonna pop that ultimate. The burst from that first hit of damage of the Death Gaze guarantees the objective.
And with that Anubis, not a full damage Anubis. Maybe this is where this solo lane Anubis kind of changes. Maybe our idea of what Anubis is. Pause on that, blink mid. Just never mind. double beats.
Yeah,
What I was
purification
saying
there.
is, yeah, what I was saying is the idea of Anubis from Smite 1 to Smite 2 maybe is changing. Maybe no longer he is a full squishy one-shot hyper glass cannon machine. Maybe now he's a more utility style tank shredder solo laner, more of like a battle mage solo laner. He's going into this Genji's. I wouldn't be surprised if he opts for a physical defense item also, but there's just a lot of cooldown. I mean, this character just outright is still a good kit, even if it is behind, because it has this ranged root or this ranged stun where if you hit it, you can follow up and just kill somebody off of it. It doesn't need to be Anubis doing the damage. He still does do a lot of damage without a lot of intelligence in his kit, but it's still a, what if he's just changing into more of just a ranged stun character with a little bit of damage and survivability?
Yeah, I think that gets kind of put perfectly on display with all this CDR that's being built, though. Gank in the mid, chain, miss on Cryonic. No talisman this time, but really quick thinking to drop open the gates back to your side of the map. Mortal Ultimate ends just a little too shy. Cryonic still living in a Phantom Shell, keeps him alive, but the chains have landed. The damage is still chasing down. Cryonic will fall. It'll be the boxes to fall right after. MVP down to the damage of Dutch Whisper, and maybe a return kill for threat level Midnight. On the opposite side, however, Archie finds Mathio under the tier 2 tower, and with the help of Valerion's ultimate, able to secure that kill. So 2 for Old and New in mid, but answered back by threat level Midnight on the opposite end.
It's a good play by threat level Midnight to not just give up that in mid. Archie gets that kill, and it's a trade across the map. Tier 1 goes down middle, tier 1 goes down in left, and it still just seems like, while yes, Old and New are finding these plays, just the farming and the plays that threat level Midnight are making are still just more valuable than what Old and New are doing. Old and New 5-man group to get the double kill, but that's time spent where 5 people aren't farming.
And a bit of danger for Distortion, trying to heal back, pops the ultimate in the middle of 2, and they've got some backup with Archie. Game Hunter goes down, ice cold, can't get the damage, can't find an escape path. And Archie's rotation nets of the unstoppable 2 more kills for threat level Midnight. And inbound, they're not done. They're going right to the Fire Giant. There's a few members on the side of Old and New that can try and answer back. The Ares on the way, Kane nearby. Dutch Whisper has got to be on rotation quickly. This Fire Giant's going fast. They might not get a chance to make their way into the pit. The focus has gone on to Kane, who's used his ultimate. Valerion's charging up theirs, but who will it even go towards? There's some tanky members. It's a Morgan transmission into a Bacchus, which works out well for Dutch Whisper, but not so much for Kane. They will go down, and Fire Giant is getting dangerously low. 1,000 HP left on the objective. Valerion shuts down Dutch Whisper, and threat level Midnight only lose their soul laner for a Fire Giant.
And what an overall good play by threat level Midnight there. Usually, maybe you completely drop Fire Giant and look for those kills. It is not easy killing the Morrigan. Yes, Ares is maybe someone you could kill, but if that Morrigan is wasting enough time, actually caught his dash there maybe. Nope.
Still has ultimate. Mathio this time doesn't have terrain to worry about as being his next enemy, so able to land in a nice and easy location to escape. Threat level Midnight. They're going right back to the Gold Fury. This is Fury number 3, so every spawn, every incarnation after this will be that Ancient Fury. Threat level Midnight, one of the ones to get that train rolling, and will grab that 3rd Fury. Gold now sitting at around that 8,000 mark for threat level Midnight.
An Ancient Fury, you say, spawns after this one. A slight change to Ancient Fury with this patch. No longer is it that kill every structure, it does no longer attacks you, you just get to walk into it for free. It is now it only weakens the outermost tower in every lane, or Phoenix, outermost structure in every lane. So it is a weakened version of what it used to be, but it's still very effective for pushing lanes, especially if you can kill tier 2 towers before you can go for the Ancient Fury. And with how much time on this Fire Giant, how strong threat level Midnight is feeling, they can pretty easily knock down some tier 2s and be ready for that Ancient Fury Phoenix threat, and maybe look for a Phoenix with that.
Is that Runic Bomb still just sitting on the floor? Okay, I think Cryonic's going over to pick that one up. Thank goodness. I was about to say, man, if I've taken a break from Smite 1 for almost, 8 months or whatnot of competitive play, just to come back to people still not picking up Runic Bomb, I was going to lose my mind, but thankfully picked up, and maybe a little bit extra In danger is Game Hunter, but Immortal ultimate try and chase out. Open the gates, use. Gets immune out, but it's a double ultimate from that Pursue the Weak. It picks up two, but the damage just isn't there from Old and New. Maybe a pullback in from this Ares would do them some good. The damage is just not there for really either team. They're just passing back and forth, trades with each other, and it's finally Dutch Whisperer who breaks this one open and finds that kill for Old and New. But their health bars are pretty bad on the side of Old and New. Multiple members sitting at that 30-40% threshold or lower. Meanwhile, it's really healthy for threat level Midnight. Again, they lose Distortion, who didn't have Fire Giant buff to begin with, again, and they're able to get this tier 2 tower.
And a bit of an unfortunate fight there by threat level Midnight, not getting the kill on the Emir, putting so many ultimates and so many abilities to try to kill this tank, and then not getting the kill ruins your chance at actually winning that 5v5. So lucky for them, they actually still do enough to, yes, lose Distortion, but as you said, no Fire Giant on them, no problem. We still got this tier 2. We now have an opportunity to go for a Phoenix if we win another fight. I think they're happily taking that, and the next time they can kind of recognize maybe this Ymir is slightly tankier than we expect. But setting up for this little play, Old and New, are they ready? Threat level Midnight isn't ready.
I don't think Cryonic really cares about dying here, if I'm being super honest, Bobby. He's 1-6 now, was 1-5 before that gank even happened. I think that that's a fine trade out for threat level Midnight. Fire Giant buff's already starting to wear out a little bit. Maybe Old and New can get a bit of a push for themselves up to this tier 2 tower. Now they got the power play, 5 versus 4, moving towards the tier 2 tower, but Old and New are just a little slow on the trigger to keeping things going. Already half HP on one of their carries in the backline, half HP on their tank. Kane is in danger, and charging up that World Weaver will hit such a low HP bar. And this 5v4 is going disastrous for Old and New. They've got to back out.
This is just the strength of the Anubis. He is just throwing out wraps, and if one of them hits, there's so much damage follow-up. He's not doing a ton of damage, but he's doing enough to threaten. And as you said, that is a 5v4 for Old and New, and they're not able to even auto the tower a single time, J-Mac. It is very good defense by threat level Midnight, and that's kind of like the strength of this triple backline comp that they have. They really don't have a ton of dive. It is very hard for them to get onto this Jingwei and to get onto the Morrigan, but when you consider what both of these comps want to do, you don't really want to dive a Morrigan or a Jingwei anyway. So if Old and New does not play fights well enough, if they walk too far forward, if they put themselves into position to get CC'd, that is exactly what threat level Midnight wants. They want the enemy team to walk into them.
Both teams starting to group up around Ancient Fury. As mentioned, not as potent as it once was, but still a powerful objective. A good pick. We a way to start this fight. Archie blinks away, gets pulled back in by the Ares ult, and watch it make it number 2 up into the air from the Mordred slam back.
And he's
down.
out.
Straight open the gates from Cryonic to bail their teammate out, and now the fight is going back slightly for threat level Midnight. They end up losing out on 1. The Bach is stunned out. This Mordred still pumping out damage, but wrapped once more. It's just constant CC and damage from this Anubis. It's Valerian to capitalize from there. A 1-for-1 trade that, in all honesty, Bobby, that should have been 2 kills, but Cryonic, perfect use of that open the gate to bail Archie out.
And I would say great play by Cryonic. I just don't know why he used the ultimate to go back in. And then with that win, threat level Midnight, 4v4 are pulling the Fire Giant. They don't really have much damage here, J-Mac.
Losing out on a bit. And some of their bursts from mid lane are not there either. So Cryonic just going to have to bail out for the time. Or Cryonic going to have to respawn, I should say. Threat level Midnight bailing out. Because they recognize they don't quite have the damage for a team fight. And without a kind of traditional crit strength style of carry in that duo lane, don't really have the objective shred that maybe some of the other teams would have. Something especially like Matthew has on the Jingwei. So it's Old and New who are starting to set up the offense. Around Fire, they're going to start this fight with an Ares ult, but it's going to get purified out immediately. Or at least it's going to have some immunities thrown that way to stop from being pulled back in.
And that's kind of like that interesting combo. Actually, a fight looking in mid. He's just dead. Matthew is just dead. That is the pick they are looking for. Game Hunter forced to blink out, but now 5 strong looking for this Fire Giant. Old and New has to make the decision now. Do we want to look to defend this with 3 ultimates available? One of them on Matthew. They only have 2 left.
See a few starting to move their way in from old and new, but it's a bail off of the fire and into the fight. Cryonic gets the killing blow onto Game Hunter. Another wrap from this Anubis. Distortion has been on point with landing this CC and allowing his team to follow up on the damage. Fire Giant has been given up. Instead, it's in favor of fighting for threat level Midnight. And if they can't get the main Fire Giant, they might as well get the younger brother of it. The Pyromancer started up, but it's a Mordred ultimate immediately through the wall. Picks up one, slams down Distortion, and an Ares ultimate to follow. Open the gate used, throws the enemy team away from him. Chronic is in a perfect position because of it. Distortion gets 1 kill, and Valerian on a sliver of HP lives. All of threat level Midnight alive after the fight, and it's a 3-kill swing.
Matthew, the only one alive going to be able to contest this, but we've analyzed before. There's not a ton of damage here from threat level Midnight to do this Fire Giant. Matthew can maybe look to do something here. Fire hitting about 9k. Trading really well by Matthew.
Oh, Matthew, speaking of, walks forward, double airstrike backwards, and immediately met by Distortion. Wrap is there on point, and the damage follow-up is too much. Bobby, they just can't go for them. Every time that threat level Midnight has started up this Fire Giant, they've had to give up the actual objective and just go for fights because they just don't have the shred yet.
And I don't think they will have the shred to ever just do a Fire Giant. They have to win a big team fight. And to their credit, they've won about 3 different team fights in a row. But they've not killed enough. They don't have enough damage to still continue pulling, but they're still getting these wins. They've worked this gold lead up to 12k. That 12k is about an item for every single god on threat level Midnight's side. We see about 6 items finished for the left side on threat level Midnight and only 5 for old and new. So a big advantage in the stats department there.
Fire Giant once more, threat level Midnight pull, and they decide, who cares about objective? Let's go for a fight once again. Kane is the target this time after a big wrap hits, using Cersei's Hexstone to actually bail himself out. A quick travel out using that transformation. So Kane gets to live for now and once again delays the objective.
And so far through these team fights, something that I've recognized is old and new doesn't have much damage. Most of the fights that they're winning are picks like this. The only way they're really winning are picks, and Dutch Whisperer is dead. They're the one that is supposed to be looking for the pick, but this Neath ult, this combination, the damage with this Bacchus is enough. They now have another 5v4 and a big ult.
Pulls Purification from Kane. Quick with it too. Nearly had the team pulled back in. But old and new get to live through this, and with the amount of cooldown rate picked up by Chronic, that should be coming back up really soon for this next team fight. And Bobby, stop me if you've heard this. Threat level Midnight on the Fire Giant, ready to go once more. But this time, no one from old and new to get in and stop this one. This is now what we'll call the freest Fire Giant the threat level Midnight has been able to go for. They'll drop that objective down, and old and new are going to trade out. Something that we've seen very common when you can't guarantee yourself to be able to get in and get one objective. You just trade out for the other. Ancient Fury in return by old and new.
And a nice wall by Game Hunter there to keep out Archie. If Archie's able to walk up, maybe get that 2 down, maybe some threat for them to wrap around threat level Midnight and look for that fight. But overstaying Matthew, the Neath ult coming in, J-Mac, not great.
Oh, well, over half his health just from that, and then Archie to take the other 50%. Threat level Midnight find a pick on the carry. Matthew down for 50 more seconds as old and new now have to go on a defense at their Phoenix. Talisman of Purification up for the Bacchus. You expect that to come out for this first Ares chain. Maybe the Mordred along with it slams him down and open the gates. Not gonna find anything with it. Purification used on both sides of the map. Ice Cold gets a kill onto Cryonic and trying to flip away his Valerian, but they just keep running into walls. Shells are keeping them as alive as long as possible, but it's just not enough. Ice Cold has really just been keeping this backline busy. Should finally go down even after shells and shields to keep them alive. They finally fall. A 2-for-3 trade for threat level Midnight and add a Phoenix on top.
They've got Wave. They've got Wave and right. They can maybe look to do something here. Matthew's still dead for 6. Not much damage here outside of the Loki. Phoenix sitting at about 3 health, but they're going for the kill to Game Hunter. He is dead.
That took a while with the Anubis ult, but thankfully he's got 3 other people. I think Kane may have just got caught in the idle animation of Cersei's Hexstone before the charge gets picked off under the Phoenix. Even with the respawn of Mathio, is it going to be enough to defend this Phoenix? It will not. They double airstrike back on landing, get wrapped by Distortion, who has just been on point all game with this Anubis. It may not be doing an insane amount of damage, Bobby, but he is hitting right now.
I'll say, maybe it's not like a ton of one-shot damage, but with how many cooldowns he has and how many abilities are just getting thrown out, I would not be surprised if he was one of the highest damages in the game currently. And something that I was going to talk about before a pick happened, and then another pick happened, and then the Phoenix was happening. There's not a ton of damage on old and new side. Ymir, basically full defense. Ice Cold, basically full defense. We did see a really good dive by him last fight. Not a ton of peel by threat level Midnight that kind of left the backline, which is something that I want to see them fix up. But the only true damage dealer on the side of old and new is this Jing Wei, who JMac is currently sitting 1 at 8. If you are the only damage on your team, you cannot be dying this often, especially on a character as safe as Jing Wei. Because we've seen Dutch Whisperer make really good use of this Morgan transformation, but he is still only turning into the Ares, who is not doing enough damage. Either you got to fix it up, change into someone else, or you're going to get picked again.
Well, able to escape for now is one, but not for Kane. Cryonic with the killing blow. But the CC from threat level Midnight is what's keeping this lockdown there. And now pushing out the final tower onto the map. Tier 2 in dual lane. Don't see them potentially going for this Phoenix just yet, is what I would say if they didn't decide to prove me wrong immediately. Kane's still down for 40. Means that there's only one access to an Ares ultimate if Dutch Whisperer transforms into them. And they may just be trying to set up for that now. Dutch Whisperer a little bit far back on the fight. You can see them kind of teetering around to the back end. It's going to take them a while. Kind of walk their way into this Phoenix. Threat level Midnight will delay no longer. Walk in themselves. Chronic's ultimate coming back up soon. Keep an eye open for an open gate. And more importantly, keep an eye out for Distortion. Another wrap ult kill for the solo laner. And a few more dead in the blink of an eye. Old and new have now lost out on all three structures. Kane and Dutch Whisperers. The last one, never mind. It's just Kane to defend. Can he find the damage? No. Talisman of Purification there. And that will seal the deal. Threat level Midnight take game one.
J-Mac, I've seen enough from the Anubis. I'm convinced he is a solo laner and he is broken. What Distortion was able to do that game, just fishing for stuns, fishing for wraps, slowing with the Gem of ISO. It was a performance by him. He was really the one setting up a lot of these plays. If they weren't getting picks with the Neath and Loki combo, which was another really good thing that Threat Level Midnight was doing, it was basically on the back of Distortion, finding poke with this wrap. And I think on the opposite side, Oldenu was just lacking damage. Morgan's turning into Ares. They have a Ymir. They have a tank jungler. There's not enough damage on the side of things, especially for Jingwei not getting to full build. They just don't have the actual damage to kill that dive. If next game they want to go for the same thing, I think Dutch Whisperer is going to have to change up who he's transforming into.
Anubis solo might just be the meta that we see moving from here onward. I'm excited to see what continues to develop as the rest of the tournament goes on, as the rest of this patch continues to keep rolling out and whatnot. But we're going to take ourselves to a quick break. When we come back, we got game number 2.
Immortals have invaded my realm, and my children rebel against me. Dark days these are. But my strength shall bring resolution, and my lightning, illumination! Zeus!
Bologna.
Anubis.
Sarah.
Kukulkan. Surtur.
That's right. Our good friends over at Starforge PCs have had available for a while, and you probably should have already picked one up. But if you haven't, go check out the SMITE 2 PC. If you want to just get a case for all of the cool stuff that you've already purchased, you already got all your parts, just need the case. This is the perfect opportunity to do so. If you go to starforgesystems.com/product/smite, you could buy either a fully built PC from Starforge Systems, some of the best PCs in the universe, or you can pick up the case and you get to customize it. When you saw in the video, that wasn't just like a cool, fun video thing that we did. That backplate with Zeus's head in the background, that can be changed to one of the different options available to you. So make sure you go over to starforgesystems.com and check out all of their amazing products. Thank you for partnering with us and getting us a beautiful Smite themed PC, which and look, this is me going to be coming back to plug the access. As soon as you get that PC, pop it in, get everything running, come over here to twitch.tv, hit !access, and get yourself a Smite 2 code, and then play some Smite 2 on that PC. There's an easy little plug for it. I'm J-Mac. I'm joined by Inbound as we get ready to jump into game number 2 between Threat Level Midnight and Old and New. And Inbound, the thing that I noticed a lot during that game was Old and New was able to find team fights. They were able to get picks, able to find a kill here, find a kill there, but they were never doing anything with it. They weren't getting an objective off of it. They weren't taking a tower or invading a jungle. It was, we got a couple of kills, but we're still 2,000 gold down. We're still 3,000 gold down. And that lead that, we're only this amount of gold down, just kept increasing as the game went on.
Yeah, and I think it was just their comp didn't have enough damage. And you know who didn't lack damage? This Anubis, J-Mac. 37,000 on top of it, 41,000 damage taken. He built very little damage, but he's got that free protection in his passive now, where the lower he gets, the more protections he gets, the more lifesteal he gets. This is a character where I'm going to point it out again. Maybe his new niche is this solo lane battle mage where you just fish for twos and you're just very hard to gank. Because we even saw Old and New making plays. It's not like this was a very slow game or anything like that. There were punches thrown back and forth, but a lot of the times they tried to gank this Anubis. They tried to make plays on this Anubis. They tried to kill the Anubis. He would just live and then he would turn fights. I've been a big fan of this Anubis now for one game, and I'm hoping to never see it again because it was that strong. It was that good.
I mean, we did see it banned in game number 1 of our day, and then it was picked up in the second game. Didn't really have a great matchup into a Bacchus solo, kept getting camped, fell behind a little too early. This game, though, the Anubis kind of got left by themselves. They were able to freely farm up, get those damage, and then eventually get that defense online, which is where the shocking value came in. Is we looked at this like, man, this is a 2 damage item, 2 defense item Anubis. Surely he's not doing that much damage. No, never mind. Top damage in the lobby and almost top damage mitigated in the lobby at the same time, which is an insane thing to really be able to see from an Anubis solo. I'm with you. While I love seeing it, for whoever is playing, you probably don't want to have to play against it if it's going to keep going that well.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's a world where that a matchup with the Bacchus is just so difficult for Anubis that Bacchus can kind of run through it, but anything that's not Bacchus, I'm worried about, J-Mac. So I am still hoping to see Prio on the Anubis, but I do think it should be banned for the foreseeable future, or maybe try that Bacchus matchup into it. The Ymir matchup, well, you would maybe think it's a fine matchup. I think Anubis just can, the Ymir can just never all in the Anubis because he just gets the sustain. He just gets to outclear you. How many gods outclear Ymir? Very few. Anubis is probably one of them.
Well, we'll see if that Anubis makes it through in the picks and bans for game number 2 between Threat Level Midnight and Old and New. And it will be TLM back on that first pick. So really, the onus is kind of on Old and New to ban that one away. Well, it's not the main dog that we were thinking of, but it is still one of them. Fenrir banned on the side of TLM, and it's a Bacchus ban for Old and New. We were talking about the Bacchus potentially being kind of the counter up against that Anubis solo. Odin is probably one that's in that similar level. You drop the cage, now there's no healing available to him.
I'll destroy.
So maybe just how strong
quite
Odin
simple,
has
really.
been with the fact
No
that
fight is
Amaterasu currently
unwinnable if we
competitively
try our
banned
hardest.
has kind of just been that next up solo laner. Will it even be a solo laner though? Because the Anubis doesn't get picked up by Old and New. It's Akate and Jingwei instead.
I wonder if you're able to play that same style Anubis in mid, because it's not like that god struggles to clear even when you build him like you did in solo lane. Maybe it's just full cooldown Anubis with a couple defense items. You just put him anywhere, because you said Odin is a very good solo laner, can be played into that Anubis. Maybe that stops Old and New from picking the Anubis, but who's to say Odin doesn't get put in jungle and TLM just locks in that Anubis again? We have seen a whole lot of Odin, but from my point of view, when it is such a strong solo laner like Odin, maybe you just put him over there anyway. You pick the Anubis, put it in mid. There's a difference, I think, between locking in strong characters because they're good and locking in strong characters because that role is open. We've not really seen, so far, granted it's only been a day, we've not seen Anubis played in other roles yet. So maybe he is just really only a solo laner. But TLM, thinking about what they want to do, Odin a little bit of flex potential. We have actually a few different supports available here. Athena's starting to get picked a lot, but I think Ymir and I think HI-rez are the two supports that stick out the most. With Ymir locked in, there is some flex potential there, but again, it just makes so much more sense for Ymir in support, and then Odin in solo lane. And the Anubis is locked in, J-Mac. Maybe it is Odin jungle and Anubis solo.
Potentially. I mean, we've already seen some of the flex of what Odin can do
Athena.
before this weekend, where it was Odin can be support, he can be solo lane, throw the jungle, which is what we kind of had already seen in previous iterations, you know, of the game, and all the way even back in SMITE 1. That was not an uncommon thing to see an Odin go into the jungle. But throwing this Anubis into the mix now, it is gonna kind of maybe leave some questions for Old and New. They do draft up the Athena and a Mordred as a combo for themselves. So you've got a little bit of that front line. You've got that Mordred, which can go into the jungle or into the solo lane. We've seen it kind of go both ways. We've seen players like Scream and Lasbra taking in jungle, but then we more often have kind of been seeing it into the solo lane for some of the other like more maybe North American style of squads. So maybe Mordred jungle is just kind of the way to go now. We'll have to kind of see where it lands out here for the Old and New. And I do want to, I probably should have done this a little bit earlier at least. So, you know, here in middle of picks and bans, the smoke break game is still happening between them and Tithonic. That's just now going to be happening off air. If that said, it's still going on by the time that we finish up this game that's going on, we'll be able to jump kind of back over into that one. But we will be focusing here on the Threat Level Midnight versus Old and New matchup for these two teams. And now the option goes back over to Threat Level Midnight inbound. We've already seen this Anubis. We've seen its primary role has been solo. Neath, we've been seeing flex between mid and carry. So all depending on this final pick is where we're going to see this Anubis potentially fall into place. Morgan locked in. I think we're seeing Anubis go back solo, man.
J-Mac, this TLM comp is beautifully crafted. They have the engage, they have the all-in potential. They also have pick potential, which they had last game, and it didn't make their team fights feel so much weaker. The only worry, which is no actual auto attack character that shreds objectives, but TLM juggled objectives really well, especially that fire giant. They would pull it, they would realize their damage isn't very high, take the fight, get a couple kills, reset, do it again. If they can keep doing that, they've crafted a really good comp. And the other side of things, Old and New, I think they were holding this last pick to kind of see where the Anubis was going. Because if you're taking Mordred into Anubis, I'm pretty sure Anubis just steamrolls that matchup. So it's kind of like a, let's draft this Mordred, we'll flex it. Depending on where they put this Anubis, then we'll draft something. And it seems like they're taking that Mordred into solo anyway, which is, I can't, like he's going to get out cleared. He's not going to be able to do enough damage. It's a worry, but with the Thanatos, maybe they're just looking to camp this lane and not even allow that Anubis to farm.
Because the Mordred doesn't really have a way to interrupt the Anubis clear. You know, like with the Ymir, maybe if it was, you know, like a Bacchus or something like that, if you're kind of preemptively loading up, you have some way to kind of cancel out some of that damage. But until Mordred gets that ultimate and gets it up to that 80 charge with it, it's gonna take a little bit of time to really be able to deal with it. You have some, maybe the thought is that you have some level of sustain with Mordred in that first ability, pop an auto attack, and then get the heal immediately after, so you can kind of match it. But you've got to find a way to really take down this Anubis. I think there's got to be a lot of focus towards Distortion to not let them free farm to the 20-minute mark, where they then just become the unkillable, sustain forever, and also I'm killing your enemy team.
Yeah, and I guess the good side of things for old and new is that they have a lot more damage in their comp this time. So maybe it was Anubis is really good if you don't draft enough damage. Last game, they really only had this Jingwei. This game, they're shifting it up a little bit. They have this Akate. They have Mordred and a Thanatos. So it's almost like flipped on its head for old and new for how their comp has shifted. Last game was a lot of tanks. This game, a lot of damage dealers. So might be just a harder game for Distortion. If the Anubis even goes to that lane, I wouldn't be too surprised if maybe they try something like Morgan solo, just to kind of have like a different showing over there. Anubis safer in mid lane if they did want to try to gank him. But either way, it's going to be interesting.
Well, let's just jump right into game number 2 here between threat level Midnight and old and new. They're going to take Distortion back on the Anubis. Said, look, you had a great game.
You're so good on it.
37k damage, 40k mitigated. Just do it again. Just run it back. No problem over there. Thing is now he's got to fight up against Game Hunter on Mordred, which isn't a pick I've seen from Game Hunter just yet. In the matchups that we've gotten to watch for this old and new team, it's been a lot of the Ymirs, it's been a lot of Bacchuses. Maybe you throw in, an Odin into the mix, kind of your traditional tanky style of solo, which Mordred can fit that bill for himself. Distortion joined the team over on the left side, realized nothing is going to happen, no invade, so instead teleports back to his side of the map. And even being on a cooldown for a minute doesn't really matter. It's all now just dependent on what happens with this potential inframe from Ice Cold and from Game Hunter. They've got 2 to try and invade this Anubis. Getting a kill on Anubis now would be a great way to try and start your game for old and new.
Gotta keep an eye.
Yeah,
on
my
that.
only worry here is that if they don't get this buff, with Odin being over here, if they don't get this, this is a very bad play for them. But not aware as Distortion is, a lot of damage onto him.
Yeah, well, Distortion had his back turned on the wall and instead goes down for first blood. Archie, maybe not thinking that the enemy team would go for an invade, but Thanatos plus Mordred, nice early damage and a nice early kill for old and new to put themselves on the board.
Also in that solo lane, engage, looking for that invade. Different build coming out from Game Hunter. Most of the time you see this Mordred, it's that Mystical Male Soul Reaver build. He's kind of itemizing into an axe right away to get some strength. So maybe a Dev's Gloves Mordred build coming out. Either way, eyes on what Game Hunter's going to be looking to build and eyes on just how this solo lane matchup is going to work. Maybe if you get ahead far enough on this Mordred, your damage is just going to be too much that Distortion can't live it. Either way, going to be an exciting 1v1 over there.
And maybe now with the teleporters, it doesn't make these early deaths feel as brutal as they could be. You die, sucks, you probably miss a couple of your minions and whatnot, but able to get back to lane quickly, at least enough for Distortion, will only be about a level behind when it could have been maybe more devastating had these teleporters not been available to him. Already down to about half HP from the poke that has come from this Mordred. And now immediately running into a Thanatos, not ideal. Stun is good for Cryonic. They're going to try and stealth away. Blink in from Cold. He was trying to find the target, but he was chasing the decoy the whole time. Archie going to try and chase out this Hecate. One more hit is not enough, and the shell is there to protect. Meanwhile, Cryonic still getting chased by Thanatos. Hits the decoy. That's twice. That's 2 times that this decoy has faked out Ice Cold and has absorbed the damage from it. I cannot believe Cryonic escaped that. What?
That is the most unfortunate events for Ice Cold there. Genuinely, the misread, actually, Game Hunter lucky he has that blink available. That would have been a solo. Maybe he can actually cast out Distortion. He can't. But blink down now for Game Hunter, maybe potential gank over there for Archie. No real way to get out of the cage when Archie hits 5. But to that fight in mid, that is a incredibly, it's not luck, I would just say it's unlucky for Ice Cold more than anything. The timing on his one, maybe if he uses it half a second earlier or waits a half a second, it's just a different story. He misreads the decoy and blinks onto it. J-Mac, that is so unlucky.
The ultimate lemony snicket. Let's not repeat it twice. Actually catches both of them with that sorry, but stunned out. Death Side connects, but just not enough damage this time for Ice Cold to get that killing blow. Well, instead, retreat back into the jungle. Cryonic has just played this Morgan as perfectly as they've been able to in this early game, and now it might be Ice Cold in a bit of danger. Detonate from the shield does quite a bit of damage to this Thanatos, and Archie is walking out of that one happily, taking hardly any damage, but now it might be a 3 versus 2. Charge up that Pursue the Weak, but who is the target? It's the Anubis. Still gets caught by it, and with Kane and the Thanatos here, that should be a kill onto Distortion, and it will be. Kane's dropped down, triple taunt back in, but that triple taunt is not great when there's 4 people following up off of it. Kane gets the credit for the kill. Olden New 3-0 over Threat Level Midnight.
And it almost seemed like a little bit of a misplay there by Cryonic. He transforms into the Athena, and unfortunately, he hits Archie with the ultimate and not Distortion. So Distortion ends up going down. Archie doesn't make great use out of that shield, and both of them end up dying. Big flip from last game. Last game, Game Hunter was behind. This game, Game Hunter is massively in the lead. Distortion actually almost forced to switch up his build. Last game, he rushed that Chronos Pendant. This game, he's thinking he needs to get a little bit of lifesteal online. He goes for that Scythe. So it's like a interesting idea of how Old and New decide to play this one. It's not, let's get a dominant solo laner to match up against this Anubis. It's, let's just make this Anubis's game impossible. Let's just shut him down completely.
Pursue the Weak hits once more. Picked up into the sky, dropped down to the floor. How much can be sustained through when there's a Thanatos charging in? They said, Distortion, your reign of terror ends here in game number 2 as a 3rd death is put into the column of Distortion on the Anubis. But when you rotate too many people to solo lane, it's an immediate meet back by Threat Level Midnight. They go straight to the Gold Fury, and there is no answer back. 4-0 for Old and New, but gold not nearly as high as it should be with that Gold Fury from Threat Level Midnight.
And even without that Gold Fury, it almost just seems like across the board, Threat Level Midnight is just farming better. I mean, 500 gold, we can give a little bit of that to the Gold Fury, but if you have 4 kills and Anubis is 0-3, Cryonic actually takes a lot of damage there off the taunt, gets really low. One more auto will do it. The one comes up and he gets the kill onto Cryonic. And that's what you want to see. Using this Athena around the map, dash taunts wherever you can, because dash taunt is like 15-second cooldown, J-Mac. Beads are 180. Get those beads and then punish it right after.
Do just that. Kane even going to go for an invade at this back heartbeat camp. And this is what Old and New was lacking a bit in game number 1 inbound, was they get these kills, they find these picks, but they weren't able to get anything beyond there. Now they're getting blue and red buff invades. They're going for these back harpies to steal them away. They're just keeping Threat Level Midnight on the back foot consistently. And the most important one of those has been Distortion F, who is 3 levels down to Game Hunter. Every time that this Anubis steps into the lane, he's being charged at by a Mordred ultimate. Every time he walks through the jungle, he's being charged at by a Thanatos hovering in the sky. There's just not much room for this Anubis to breathe, and he might not even get that opportunity because there's still 2 standing around on the right side of the map.
And I kind of like the builds that Old and New are going for. Hecate Book of Thoth makes sense. It's nothing surprising there. Dev Gloves on your ADC makes a ton of sense. Those 2 are not surprising. But outside of that, Game Hunter going for that early strength, maybe just to try to confirm that gank, and then just itemizing into this really strong item in Genji's Guard. You also have the Yogi's Necklace, which just got buffed, that Kane is going into. A defense item, gives you a lot of health and some regen. And actually Kane forcing out that Odin ult there. Old and New is putting a lot of pressure on Threat Level Midnight, but J-Mac, this game is still 1,000 gold. That's it. 0 to 5, 1,000 gold.
It's all about Gold Fury and follow-up objectives. Queen Naga pulled, reset for a moment and picked back up. Threat Level Midnight grab themselves another objective to keep themselves in this one. And they will give the buff over to Cryonic, which probably not too much to gain, at least from giving the buff to the Morgan. But even this early in the game, unless you're going for an objective, That buff is more so just to kind of clear the objective off the map, get it set up for its next rotation in. And maybe if you can find a lucky siege, Thanatos hovering death. It's to the Emir. Do you have enough damage to follow up? Absolutely not. Phantom shells keeping them alive. Turnaround freeze under the tower. Isn't enough for the kill. The World Weaver will secure it from Valerion. Quick turnaround thinking from threat level Midnight. Turned what could have been a great pick from old and new into a disastrous turnaround for threat level Midnight.
And just a little too deep by Kane there, not recognizing that no abilities are up. We don't have anything else available. If we keep diving, we can't kill. And then a good idea by Valerian to ultimate with the Neath over to that fight in middle. Kane is not very tanky right now. His survivability is in the form of health and health regen. Diving a tower, especially at this point in the game, especially after tower's damage got buffed, it's a call that you can make if you have a really big lead. They don't have a big enough lead to make a play like that.
Thought for a moment we might see a fight of some kind in mid, but playing it patiently. This is the safest that Distortion F has been this entire game. Still 2 levels down. Maybe a little bit of backup alongside them. Odin Cade drop down, pursue the weak, body block by the Odin. Perfect placement and landing into the hole. Heap of damage. Distortion bring him right back into the game. But now there's an Athena and a Thanatos. Distortion might just be going down here. But the shell, the sustain that this Anubis has going into a little bit of lifesteal has paid off in dividends for Distortion F. And he lives through all of that damage to stay alive.
Good idea by Archie there to stand in front of Game Hunter on the Pursue the Weak ultimate, trying to just block it because the blink was down. There was no way for Game Hunter to get out of that cage unless he gets that ult off. Archie, aware of that, is there to block it. And then just not enough damage to kill this Anubis, J-Mac. Those protections he's getting when he's low, it makes him really, really tanky. Comboing that with the shell and then the sustain, this is not a free kill ever unless you have that execute. And unfortunately, Ice Cold was just not close enough.
Bit of damage thrown towards the Zacate. Kane doesn't have ultimate available. Nice little steal of the gold camp there by Valerion, pulling that one away from Mathio. Now with a rotation in from Kane, be a bit dangerous. If Valerion doesn't have that backflip available, which, knowing Valerion, will be holding on to that one. Unlikely to use it for any kind of damage and just holding that backflip for actual engagements that come this way, but with NVB rotating over and a Morgan in the jungle, double freeze from the Emir pulls the Morgan out of the decoy, out of their stealth, and Cryonic goes down. Dutch Whisperer credit for 1. Hovering death. Where will the landing target be? Unlikely. On top of one of the 2 tanky members inside of the jungle. Instead, it's over towards Valerion. Has the backflip to get under tower. And that may just be enough. No blink, I would assume, available for this. Thanatos, no life available because Distortion has said goodbye. Solo lane, hello, kills. 2 on the left side, 1 going over to the way of the solo laner.
With Distortion over here, and they see Game Hunter in right lane, they're actually able to make this pull. About 5k health on it. Dutch Whisper, only one here. Mathio deciding to stay left.
Dutch Whisper has opened the gates, could pull people off if they get the opportunity to, but this Odin will not allow so. Archie zones away the Hecate, and it's another Gold Fury for threat level Midnight. And for the first time this game, Bobby, have now given themselves a gold lead. It's been sitting around that 1 to 2k mark for old and new for most of this matchup, but finally, with those couple of picks and a second Fury to their name, threat level Midnight are finding their way back in.
J-Mac, does this not have the feel of a very good team playing against a, like you know, like the levels of like a really, really good team plays a slightly weaker team, and it doesn't really matter what's happening on the map. The one team is just farming better. That's the feeling I'm getting from threat level Midnight. I don't know where they're finding this extra farm. This Gold Furies are very nice, but they're 1,500 gold with just 2 Gold Furies, and they lost the First Blood. It's just across the board. They're just out farming, and it's just everywhere except Valerion's down 1 level. They have a 2-level lead in jungle. So Archie, I guess, just playing a really good game and farming really well right now.
Yeah, it feels like Ice Cold has mostly been focusing on the fighting. Multiple times now we panned over to them trying to go in on targets that are full HP or maybe sitting around that half, hoping the rest of the team can knock them down. But they're not getting those kills, and so since they aren't getting the kills, they're also not able to farm because they're spending all their time trying to go for these kills. And it's just allowing Archie to get back in. Distortion was down almost 3 levels at one point. Now just barely about a half, maybe 1 full level down to Game Hunter. And we saw the rotation. I believe Distortion used the base teleporter to go to the duo side of the map, joins that team fight, and then what does he do immediately after? Jump in the teleporter on the duo side of the jungle and hop back over to the solo lane just to keep farming. It's just a level of efficiency that not a lot of teams have picked up on yet.
And it's the more you use it, the more you see your team using it, the more comfortable you're being. And Distortion, even after a first couple ganks, seems like he's just playing a little bit smarter. It almost seems like he was playing a little disrespectful in the early game. He was turning his back, farming at level 1 because he didn't expect anyone to walk in. And it seems like he's kind of waking up where I can die. I'm not unkillable. There is potential for me to get ganked. And now, I mean, farming safer, he's farming smarter, he's rotating well. And this is that spot of the Anubis where it becomes a really big issue trying to kill him because he's starting to get those protections online. He's got a boatload of cooldown and he's got a lot of lifesteal. Distortion is going to be an issue.
The ever fun game as a player in one of these side lanes is, hey, you're trying to back in front of me. What if you don't do that? Problem is, like, trying to stop a Jing Wei back doesn't really feel like it gets to accomplish a whole lot. Just because it's a Jing Wei, they just fly right back in, or in the case of the teleporters now, they just get right back to the tower anyways. But anything that you can do just to kind of slow down the momentum of this duo laner.
And slowing down the dual laner, slowing down the side laner, slowing down even mid laners, junglers from getting those efficient backs off is what you want to do. Those are like those small wins that you get. And when you are in these earlier portions of the games, the middle portions of those games, those small leads start to matter. I mean, 2,000 gold lead at this point, getting a couple gold furies, couple team fight wins. When you're looking at also what TLM wants to do at this point, Gold Fury's coming up soon. Pyro's coming up soon. You have this Jing Wei. You have this Morrigan to either transform into Athena or Neith to make those rotations. You got to protect your Anubis. We have seen already what he's able to do. We've seen how he's able to play these 1v1s, 1v2s, how he's able to live these ganks. They have a lot of response to defend him, to help him out. There is a potential swap, I think, that could be happening with teleporters that I think hasn't been explored a lot, where if you're looking to make a play on Pyro, have one of your more damage dealers be on that side of the map. Have your soul laner clearing on the other side. That's what I want to see players start to look to do. Use the teleporter not just for ganks, but just to like lane swap to set up for Pyros and for Gold Furies. And that is something that we could see out of TLM.
There's a brief pause going on right now. That's why we kind of pulled out to now you see our beautiful faces instead. But players trying to restart and get themselves right back into the game. So we should be able to hop back in very shortly. That's kind of why you're seeing us here as opposed to. But I think you're right to say that these teleporters, not just the side lane ones, but these base teleporters, it's one that to your casual player, the second that they can teleport into a lane, they're boom. Okay, I'm just want to get back to my lane and keep farming. It's when we get to this high level of competitive to really start utilizing those base teleporters. Say, look, I can get to lane super quickly, or I can wait till maybe we want to go for a pyro. Oh, I had a bad fight. I'm super low. Teleport right back in with those base teleporters, get to it. Or we saw in the case of Distortion, using another lanes to try and get to a team fight and see if we can keep things, keep the action rolling there. Well, and speaking of the action, we could jump right back in here with threat level Midnight and Old and New. Kills, not super impressive on either side. 6-4 has been a fairly low kill game. But this started out as a 5-0 start for Old and New. And a lot of it was doing exactly this. Go over to Distortion, see if you can kill them. Anubis Ultimate's going to sustain him a lot of his health back with 3 people around. He's still alive? How is this man not dead yet? Teleport in from their own Athena now off the transformation from Cryonic. Keeps this Anubis alive. And he might just be able to turn around and get a kill of his own. What is happening? This is disgusting. I'm ready to throw up, Bobby. I cannot believe the stuff I am seeing on my screen.
J-Mac, there's anti-heal built by Game Hunter, and Distortion is able to with very little threat, honestly. Very little threat. He's able to turn that, get a kill, get 2 kills. This was a 1v3 that turned into a 2v3. And that was basically all distortion in that fight. I was saying protect this Anubis. Hey, man, he might not need protecting. You might have to protect old and new from this Anubis.
Yeah, call him threat level infant on the side of old and new. Distortion didn't care. He said, 1v1, I got this. 1v2, yeah, you know, this might be a little bit. 1v3, you still need more people, apparently. I mean, he used every resource in his kit, dropped his 3, had his first ability silenced. Like, you saw that his actual other damage got silenced out during that. And he still has the resources to keep fighting in a 1v3. I just can't believe that even with anti-heal, that Distortion had the wherewithal to just stand his ground and recognize that he had the sustainability to do that. And he might just keep doing it. At this point, I'm not banning Anubis, I'm banning Distortion. I don't want this player in my game anymore. This guy's insane.
And as you said, making that play in middle, and Valerion's ultimate is just enough to kill Dutch Whisperer. That shield that he has is only magical defense, but Matheo looking for that 1v1 in left.
See if Matheo can find the kill that they're hoping for. Valerian is low over there. Meanwhile, it's a fight over in mid for the tower. Valerian falling low. Now you get Athena to back it up. There's no true 1v1 no matter where you go. Matheo credited for the kill. Didn't even need the damage from the Athena. It was just that threat factor alone. Forger ultimate goes in, picks up 2. Beads in the air is not going to save you, Chronic, but he transforms into the Thanatos, and it gets them nowhere. At this point, transform into Distortion. That's your best option if you want to live. Just turn into the Anubis, man.
And then a lot of action in the last 30 seconds. I'm still not over what I saw with Distortion. This is a fight around your Anubis. If you are threat level midnight, that's what you need to do. Your Neath unfortunately gets caught out. He drops the ultimate to try to make that fight in middle. He does get killed in that 1v1. I don't mind that. But taking that fight in middle, going for that tier 2, especially when Distortion isn't there, he left to go farm the right lane, I think it's just unwise. It's just threat level midnight saying, we're up 5k, we can win these fights. Unfortunately, the one winning the fights isn't really anyone else. It's Distortion. Distortion is winning these fights. Fight around your Anubis.
Defending the mid tier 1 as much as they can for this Ymir. Distortion just go make sure this tower is stayed safe and scare off old and new, the biggest threat on the map. I never thought I would see the day inbound where I'm saying the biggest threat on the map is a solo lane hybrid Anubis. I feel like I'm 10 years into some dystopian future that nobody could have ever predicted. And threat level midnight gonna go for a little bit more action. Jump in by Archie. Damage is there on the Thanatos and forces a hovering death from Ice Cold. Immediately out, but met with a World Weaver. Double freeze, big damage, and another ultimate used defensively for old and new. But because they ulted out of an Odin cage, they land into the damage from the spear after. Cryonic de-transforms out of their own Thanatos, and threat level midnight make a beeline for the Fire Giant.
And we're going to see if they have enough damage. We saw this issue last game where they just didn't have the damage, and if old and new opts to defend, could be a little risky. So far, only really Game Hunter coming to this side of the map. It looks like it's a give with Game Hunter potentially trying to slow them down. I think this is wise. Get more farm on your team. You're not going to be able to walk into this team. We saw what happened in the last game when you did.
Game Hunter's around the corner. Can he get the damage at 2,400 on the objective? NVB has got to back out for now, and Distortion secures the Fire Giant for the team. Meanwhile, Archie is chasing away Kane, who's going for invades at the back shield camp. Game Hunter alive for now. Tried to distract as best he could, but not enough to stop this Fire Giant. Going over to threat level midnight. 3 Furies, Fire Giant, and now a tie game in kills. It's only a 3,000 gold lead, but it feels like it's so much more when the man on your screen right here, Distortion, walks onto the battleground.
I'm also pretty baffled every time he misses his 2. Like every 2 he throws out, I feel like it's just going to hit somehow. He's missed a few in a row, and it's just weird every time. But still farming up. He's got that Genji's Guard now, which is this is the really big strength we saw from the Anubis Lax game. The first 2 items are awesome, great, a lot of spam, a lot of sustain. But now he's got that spam, the sustain, and the tankiness. It's going to be very hard for them ever to commit to him. Really, at this current moment, with how far behind this Thana is and how far behind Dutch Whisperer is, it's really just Jing Wei that's going to be able to kill him. But compared to last game, Matheo is farmed up. He's level 19. He's not dying a lot. He's positioning a lot better. And this is where he's the one that needs to be able to get the kills.
Uh-oh, run. Distortion is here. They got a tier 2 tower. They're going to knock down. No problem for them. But if Distortion can keep 3 busy on this side of the map, maybe turn the corner, see if he can stop. Didn't quite find the Hekate, and the Thanatos is backing in a bush. The trade of tier 1 or tier 2 towers for TLM and for old and new. Left side tower in the duo lane for TLM. Old and new, as mentioned, get to knock down that solo lane 1. Ancient Fury at play for the tier 2 in mid. So threat level Midnight have no reason to not just walk into this tower and try and get some damage. Well, a very early hovering death from Ice Cold. It got TLM to back out just a bit, but now he's lacking that ultimate. He's lacking that initiation to go in. And immediately, as soon as a dash taunt comes in, it's met immediately by Anubis ultimate from a Distortion. And one goes down immediately in the fight. Low health bars from Old and New as they try and backpedal their way out of this fight. But Kane is running as fast as he can, able to dash away from the Ymir. You trade out Cryonic, but you get 2 and make it. Nearly a third one. Open the gate. Pulls under Phoenix. It's not enough, though. Distortion's just going to re-sustain back up. 2 for 1 at the end of the day.
With this 4v3 Fire Giant still available, could still look to walk in. A lot of damage still available. Anubis ult is up, and he's healing a lot. Able to tank this up. They get the kill on a Dutch Whisperer. Kane is also forced out, and this middle Phoenix is going down. They could look for more. Maybe just a Phoenix, but potential end area here.
Bobby, that last fight started with an Anubis ultimate. That's just the insane amount of CDR that is available to Distortion. It was a Athena dash taunt, and then now it's going to be a pursue the weak on landing. Distortion drops the 3 and the 1. There's a lot of healing back up. No ultimate, but a massive shield coming in from the shell and from that starter of the support. Wrap connects, and immediately Game Hunter bails themselves out. You even saw NVB charging that ult just in case Ice Cold decided to crash landing.
And with that Jing Wei available coming up from spawn, has that fly capability, so don't want to push it too much. Threat level Midnight, they get what they came for. They broke the base. They got that middle Phoenix. They're very strong, and they have a ton of gold to spend. With Pyro spawning in a little bit, right after that Ancient Fury, and then right after that Fire Giant. I think that is a good spot for them to end this siege. Go spend your gold and get strong for these next few objectives, because right now it's a really easy snowball, I guess, for TLM, where there's not like 2 different objectives up. There's going to be only one up for like the next 30 seconds every 30 seconds. So it's very easy. Pyro, Gold Fury, Fire Giant, and it's just like clockwork. They're going to be able to do them all and push this lead even more. Old and New is in a worrisome spot at this point, because they've not got enough farm to really fight back. That was a really good engage by them. They just used the Thana ult, I think, a little bit too early. If they can maybe clean it up a little bit, it's going to be closer, but still, that should have been a pretty even fight, and it just wasn't.
So now threat level Midnight heading back to base, resetting, because Fire Giant and Ancient Fury set to respawn here very shortly. Threat level Midnight with a pretty substantial lead in this game now, 9k gold. And only just recently tipping themselves in favor on the kill lead. Remember, they were down 0-5 to start this game. And as soon as they turn the corner, Game Hunter barely lives. And it's only because he was just out of range of Distortion's last couple ticks of damage. But Pursue the Weak now on cooldown. Old and New go for Ancient Fury, while threat level Midnight goes straight to the Fire Giant. They're going to give up one objective in trade for the other. I don't think anyone on Old and New are going to be able to get there in time. Fury for Old and New, Fire Giant for threat level Midnight.
And with left being shoved by Old and New, right lane, Game Hunter might be in a little bit of danger, but he does seem aware, does space well enough. Cage is actually onto him.
Oh, and there's a Thanatos ult off of Cryonic's transformation. Nowhere now for Game Hunter to go. He was safe. And then all of threat level Midnight saw him as a threat and decided to chase him down beyond the tier 2 tower and in towards the Phoenix. Threat level Midnight with 1 down on the side of Old and New can start up their next push. The Phoenix is not disabled. Remember, Ancient Fury went the other way, but a dive bomb in by this Odin. Not quite enough damage to kill the Thanatos. That's a hovering death on cooldown once more for Ice Cold. Forced back to the fountain. Mid Phoenix, gone. Right Phoenix, just now notched away. And threat level Midnight are going to head over to the left side of the map. Minions not quite with them just yet. Distortion is going to start this fight immediately with a big wrap combo. Ultimate is not available to the Anubis, and open the gates isn't going to get as far as they would hope. Immediate airstrike out for Matthew. The Cryonic is going to secure 1 more kill, and an Odin cage back up to lock in as long as possible. Titan now pulled for threat level Midnight. Pursue the weak. Where is Game Hunter going to go? Who is his target? It's to a shelled being. They're not going to take too much damage through it, but on landing, will finally take down Distortion. Game Hunter is full HP and back ready to fight. Roots down 1 in place of the ultimate. Threat level Midnight are falling apart in this team fight. Old and New defend their base, defend their Titan, and take down 4.
They also get their middle Phoenix back up, so a little bit of comeback potential here for Old and New. Get this mid lane pushed up a little bit. A little too deep for TLM, just a little bit too deep. Archie goes for the cage into the base. They don't have any actual wave walking in, so Distortion walks in, eats way too many abilities, does get taken down, but J-Mac, a couple seconds, Anubis ult was back up. I thought they were baiting it nearly perfectly, and he just slightly underestimated how much damage he was going to take there. But if Anubis ult comes back up, he gets a little bit of lifesteal off. Maybe we're talking about a different story. Fortunately for Old and New, though, no Anubis ult was available. They get that win. Still in a worrisome spot, though. They're not out of the woods. They're not in the clear. They are still massively, massively far behind. They still have 2 Phoenixes down. And this Anubis is still only getting stronger, J-Mac. My favorite thing about Smite 2 is this 7th item. It just makes it so once you hit 27 minutes in Smite 1, you are basically farming for a 3k pot. Now, you're still getting these extra items that are still increasing the strength, and then you can worry about your 3k pots later. I love seeing how much more scaling there is for these things.
Yeah, it's no longer that, okay, I farmed up for, you know, my starter item. I'm full build, ready to go. Now it's, okay, I got my starter, but like I've still got a lot more to go. You know, I still got, you know, another full item and a half, maybe 2 items before you finally hit that peak. And it really gives you that extra level of build diversity that starters in Smite 1 may have kind of shoehorned away from players for a little while. Pyromancer for threat level Midnight. Runic Bomb in pocket for NVB. And threat level Midnight are starting to kind of walk through the jungle, see if they can find anybody straggling. Distortion being the frontliner is still odd to me, but it's working out well for TLM. Died in that last engagement. I thought after that Mordred ultimate hit him, after that Pursue the Weak slam, picks up Distortion, and he eats the entirety of it with a shell. I thought Distortion was fine, but didn't have anything on landing and had perfect follow-up from Old and New. And maybe that's their trick to finding these kills. Is start with Game Hunter, land that Pursue the Weak, or maybe start with a big taunt from Kane. But now you've walked into 4 people. Ult's gonna get quite a bit of damage. Kane's still alive. Pursue the Weak into the backline, gets beads off of the Moor again. Game Hunter blinks away, but he was still rooted and now walled off. Open the gates, nearly saves his life, but he's still taken down. It's a 1-for-1 Cryonic for Game Hunter, but it's full health bars for Old and New. Fast wrap off the dash from Distortion, and another wall slows down the engagement. Distortion waiting to get some damage, waiting for some sustain to come back, but Old and New have not given up their pursuit just yet.
We've got eyes on Distortions here, looking for that too. On the other side of things, Old and New, eyes on Matthew. We said a lot of last game about deaths that he's had, but he's got this Deathbringers finished. He's doing a lot of damage.
Root on to Kane, falling low, but it's a combo of Matthew and Dutch Whisperer slamming through the health bars of these backliners. I mean, this Akate didn't really get that big of a hit coming into this patch, and you can see the damage really starting to ring true as Ancient Fury is going to be going over to Old and New. They found their way to slow this game back down. Their left Phoenix is about to come back up, which means that Titan is going to regen.
And right there, Distortion finishes his Spirit Robe, gets to that 7th item. But on the opposite side of things, Matthew just finished his Titan's Bane. So this is a very, very fed and strong Jing Wei, who is probably the only one that can kill this Anubis. The only reason the Anubis has died in the last 5 minutes was because they comboed Game Hunter's ultimate with Matheo's autos on the landing. So Matheo's positioning, I think, is very important here. He can't have his shell force too early. He can't have his ultimate force too early. He's on the left side of the map, but there's not a big worry with how slow Fire's burned with threat level Midnight.
Taunt onto NVB. Half HP onto the Ymir. Distortion trying to get some poke onto the back line, but not quite hitting the targets he was aiming for. Wrap is good, but that's going to be that starter, that heroism popping in and coming into play for Kane. And that might just be the saving grace for one individual. If they're standing near Kane, they get wrapped, they get that shield to them, and that might just be what saves the day for one of these backliners from this Anubis. Because that one starter item has made it so difficult to kill players, not just in this game, but over the course of competitive so far. It just feels like that selflessness into heroism is just the go-to starter for your supports.
Especially with less beads that we've been seeing, that first wrap isn't an auto kill. Actually, dash taunt looks good. He gets caught on the dash.
Kane in danger, pops the Phantom Shell to stay alive. Pursue the weak, does hit two, but MVP is the main target of it. Has to use his ultimate to not get pulled back by the open the gate. Distortion is falling a bit low. Finds another wrap, finds the sustain after. Look how much he's healing back throughout all of it, but Cryonic goes down to Ice Cold, who's just gonna keep charging forward. Death Scythe hits onto Valerion. That's gonna put him at critical HP, and that nearly would have taken him out with the Spell Leader connects. But he's able to live. Old and new are not done yet.
And Game Hunter is finding some unbelievable openings. Takes a ton of damage. Dutch Whisper follows up with the ultimate, able to get out. And Fire Giant's getting burned on this side of things.
Yeah, when you got a crit Hunter, it's a lot easier to deal with that. Archie walks up, but by the time he gets to the pit, Fire Giant's already gone. Old and new. Started off this game hot, started falling apart in the mid game. But they have found their answer inbound. It is Game Hunter start this fight, Kane start a second fight all at one time, and just let Matheo and Dutch Whisperer recast.
And I've actually really liked how it's almost like they've comboed this Mordred big ultimate with this Hecate ultimate. It is an interesting thing to see, because Game Hunter can basically use his entire kit to just get in there and then just use the teleport to get out. And if there's no beads available, if there's no blink available, and if Distortion is too far forward, this could be bad.
He's falling low, sustaining back up, diving from the Thana, not quite enough. Shell is there. Game Hunter picks him back up again, and on landing, met with another crit by Matheo. This is now the tried and true combo for old and new. Game Hunter, pick up a target. Matheo, execute that target as soon as they're on the floor. Threat level Midnight now on the back foot, defending their own Phoenix. Wall will keep things delayed for a little while. Low HP on Kane. Phoenix is starting to chunk in, and now may even get a little bit of damage from Game Hunter. Have HP, open the gate, doesn't pull anybody back. Quick beads keeps the mid laner alive, but the Phoenix is caught in Valerian. Gets slammed by a Spell Leader. It's now 3 versus 5. Game Hunter comes back in. Dutch Whisper finds another clutch kill, and old and new are gonna try and drag this one into game number 3. Another kill onto Archie, and old and new have done it. One misstep from threat level Midnight at the enemy Titan has turned this game on its head. Old and new have found their way back in to tie this up.
J-Mac, Crit Hunters, 7 items. They're strong. They are very strong. Hecate, 7 items. Very, very strong. It almost seemed like TLM didn't execute as well as they needed to avoid going to that late game. The weakness of having Neath in a 5v5 fight, Morgan in a 5v5 fight, and then this Anubis, while yes, the mid game is phenomenal, the earlier portions of the late game are phenomenal. If you go to that super late game, Anubis is not surviving long enough. He's just getting popped, and it is way too hard to kill this Jingwei. I think Matheo took a massive step in this second game, and that Jingwei looked a lot better.
Well, old and new able to claw this one back. We're sitting 9,000 down, had one good base defense, and from that point onward, we're able to bring things back and tie us up. It's 1-1. When we come back from this break, we'll be ready with game number 3.
I can say. Justice. Is there some heat to find if we're going to the beach? I'll let you blow my mind. Are we going to the beach? Is there some heat to find if we're going to the beach? I'll let you blow my mind. Now give me love. Now give me love. Baby, baby, I want your love. You know I gotta get your loving and devotion. Baby, baby, I want your body. I wanna wake up every morning with you. Baby, baby, tonight I want you within my arms so I can show you my emotions. Baby, baby, I want your body. I wanna wake up every morning with you. Now give me love. Now give me love. Love and devotion. If that's what you want, you're gonna get it. I'll try to be your man, and I'll make you understand what I am feeling, what I'm feeling about your feelings. I wanna make you mine for one last time. Baby, baby, I want your love. You know I gotta get your loving and devotion. Baby, baby, I want your body. I wanna wake up every morning with you. Baby, baby, tonight I want you within my arms so I can show you my emotions. Baby, baby, I want your body. I wanna wake up every morning.
It's never been done before.
What's the plan?
When was the last time you were in Vegas?
You want to host an esports event in Vegas for SMITE. SMITE 2. Now you're talking.
The HyperX Arena, Las Vegas.
Some said it couldn't be done.
Are you guys out of your mind? The J Dragons winning worlds can't be beat. Not shouldn't be beat, it cannot be beat.
This January, see SMITE like you've never seen before.
You clowns are gonna need a team even crazier than you. Who'd you have in mind?
Coming this January, Hindu Man's 11.
You're either in or you're out.
I'm in.
Well, Dolson's in. Are you in? Here for the Founder Series at the HyperX Arena in Las Vegas. You go to smiteesports.com/Vegas. You can find out all the information leading up to Las Vegas. And who knows, maybe if you haven't already jumped into some competition, you can play in an open bracket of your own. Remember, we got 5 open brackets going on right now. We've got the EMEA, the North America, we've got the Latin America, Brazil, and APAC regions all playing. And a few of those ones still have opportunity to jump up into going to Vegas. You can also, if you're not planning on competing, pick up a ticket now as they're on sale. So make sure you go pick one of those tickets up, jump into an open bracket, or if you're already competing in one of these now, find some big wins and you could find yourself playing on stage or watching the big matchups on stage at Las Vegas. And to do all of that, you got to be jumping into SMITE 2. I'll once again plug it, exclamation part access, if you want to get yourself some free access into SMITE 2 just to kind of jumpstart your gameplay and be able to jump in and have a little bit of fun. And speaking of fun, inbound, that was a roller coaster of a game number 2. I mean, this started out old and new, doing really well, and then threat level midnight was able to kind of sink things back, and then threat level midnight starts jumping up, and then it's another roller coaster dip back down as old and new finds some picks. I mean, this was a back and forth, absolutely insane game to watch. Again, because of distortion. It started off so tragically for distortion. Gets killed at their blue buff. They don't even get the buff. They die. They lose the buff. They teleport back in the lane. It's just the constant bullying of this Anubis. It didn't stop distortion, though. It's still top damage. Not top mitigated, but still a very high number on the column for them at 48,000, nearly 49K with the amount of damage that they were able to do. Top damage for themselves, however, only second to Dutch Whisperer, which I think was maybe the key difference of this composition, was giving this Hecate over to old and new allowed for so many extra opportunities for old and new to be able to find their way in and out of these team fights.
Yeah, and so far we've seen Dutch Whisperer and Cryonic on both sides of this matchup. We saw last game, Cryonic was on the Hecate in game 1, and Dutch Whisperer was on Morgan. And it seems like Dutch Whisperer is just getting the better of him in both of these matchups. And I think from seeing both the Hecate and the Morgan, there's value to both, I think, but how he was able to pilot this Morgan or this Hecate in the late game, pairing it with Game Hunter's Mordred and how they kind of dove and peeled it with each other at the same time, it was really cool to see. I think they finally got into a flow. And with that, I want to see TLM break this flow. Either the Hecate or the Mordred have to be gone. The Thana wasn't an issue. The Jingwei was very strong, but I don't think it was winning him the game. Any crit hunter can kind of do what that is. But I think the Hecate's got to be something you pick away.
Oh, we'll see what gets picked up, what gets taken away. Game number 3, picks and bans. Just about ready to roll out now here for old and new versus TLM. And old and new, for the first time this set inbound, are going to be taking that first pick spot.
There it is.
And a first ban Anubis. They don't want to play it, and they certainly don't want to give it back to Distortion 3 games in a row. It doesn't really, in my eyes, matter how the end result of that second game went. The fact that Distortion started off as poorly as he did, 2-3 levels down in the early game, a couple of deaths immediately, and he was still able to turn around and make plays like he did, shows not just the strength of this god, but also the tenacity of the player. So take it away from the hot hand at this point, and old and new maybe go with the strongest pickup that they can go for, grabbing this Hecate once more for their mid laner Dutch Whisperer.
Yeah, and I like this Hecate pick. I think it's something that they should lock in. It is a little surprising to see it so early, but I still think it's a very valuable pick there. But it's TLM that's getting 2 very valuable picks in this Odin and this Bacchus. Probably the best 2 available solo laners. It's TLM is trying to get Distortion a very strong solo lane pick, and I think they're doing that perfectly. The Anubis in game 1 and 2, and then this Bacchus or the Odin semi-flexed. One of them will be going to solo lane. I really like it, and I think when your solo laner, when your mid, whoever it is playing really well, you get them the hot hand, you get the hot hand, the good picks, and I think that's what they're doing. On the opposite side, old and new locking in this Athena Jingwei. I thought the Athena was fine. I think I would have preferred the Emir. Again, I think Athena is really limited in what she can do. She's got a nice ultimate. Her dash taunt is cool. She can kind of pull beads, but she just doesn't feel that effective. It is we can still make plays. We can still rotate TP around the map, stuff like that, but comboing a Ymir Jingwei just to kind of get that Jingwei through the early game, I think makes a lot more sense. But they played Athena Jingwei last game and they were able to live that laning phase.
Yeah, I think you kind of highlighted it, maybe at the end of game number 1 and all throughout game number 2 was kind of the difference for this carry to be able to really live through. Matthew all throughout the early game was kind of struggling in game number 1 and died one too many times, but game number 2 was able to stay alive, was able to get to those, final 5-6 items in their build, and then it just became we have no one to get to the Jingwei on the side of TLM, and so everything just kind of falls apart there. The answer back now from TLM, there's no Hecate available to him. Anubis has been banned away, so now we're seeing a Kernanos and Neith. And Kern is one of those interesting hunters inbound that we have seen kind of go 2 different build paths. With Neith, it's almost always just been the hardcore ability burst damage. I'm going to build a lot of intelligence and just make my abilities go boom. With Kernanos, we've seen 2 different styles. We've seen that similar. I can build a lot of, int and let my abilities do the brunt. but we've also seen a lot of just hardcore strength, attack speed, crit style from your kind of traditional carry type of role.
And I think I want to see that auto attack certain build. I want to be able to go to those objectives and do them, because TLM has had a big issue with doing objectives. We talked about it at the end of last game when Old and New was doing that fire giant, where if you have a crit god, you shred the fire giant. If you don't have a crit god, it's going to take you like 15 seconds. And unless it's free, you're probably not going to be able to do it. So I think TLM is recognizing it. They don't have the Anubis anymore to kind of make up for a little bit of the damage missed. So they're going for this Cernanos, and I hope it's going ADC, and I hope it's building auto attack. And Old and New locking in this Loki, locking in the Mordred. They're gonna have the same combo of Hecate Mordred, but no Thana this time. This is almost the exact same comp that Old and New had last game, but they're switching out the Thanatos for the Loki, and I think I like this Loki more. I just think Thanatos is a little too underwhelming. Yes, Loki's not a strong early game, but when it goes to those mid game fights, I think Loki's just gonna do so much more.
And I think another thing to pull from this as well is there's no the Morgan this time for TLM. You know, that was kind of one way that they were able to find extra ways back into a fight. You know, you've got a Thanatos, which means we have a Thanatos, and we can jump in and get an execute, you know, try and keep these kills and these team fights going a bit. But now with no Morgan, it is just a true 5 versus 5, your gods versus our gods kind of scenario. No double Ares ultimates to be able to pull people back in, you know, after you burn one purification talisman. Instead, it is just what is presented to you on the screen. The Susano is one that we haven't really seen a whole lot of recently, especially today. I mean, given that we've only watched, you know, 4 games up until now. First time seeing the Susano. I know that coming into this patch, he did receive a bit of a nerf, but a nerf so much that he now kind of falls into a 10th pick spot when we even saw the Thanatos performing fairly well in the last game. How do you kind of feel about Susano right now inbound?
He's still fine. I think he's just weaker early game, and I think if you want a early game god, I think while Thanatos is pretty weak, I think he does still have a strong enough early game. So I think you pick the Susano to kind of be fine with a weaker early game jungler, but it scales a lot harder into the late game. I personally would still most of the time prefer having a Susano, because it is very rare that that early portion matters so much that slightly stronger early game Thanatos is worth more than Susano. The nerf does hurt though. It makes his farming worse, but I still think he's just such a efficient character at what he does. He's very good at picking you. He's very good at chasing you down, and he's still a pretty good team fighter.
Now, one thing I will point out to you know, the fans watching at home, they're wondering, well, man, the clock has ticked over to 3 p.m. Isn't there supposed to be North America right now? There will still be our 2 North American sets, and we're not going to be missing any of the on-air broadcast ones. Those ones are just going to be on hold until this matchup in particular is done. So now that we are here in Game 3 of Old and New versus Threat Level Midnight, we can actually jump into game and get the action going between these two teams. And once this matchup is done, we'll be ready to jump over into North America. And I'm excited to see how Game 3 shakes out inbound, because Game 2 was a complete roller coaster for these two teams. So seeing kind of where everything lands out, seeing where the Cernanos kind of prioritizes his build comparatively. You know, we kind of knew already what the Neath was going to be doing. You know, it's just a lot of build intelligence, go big burst damage. So we'll have to see how things shake up this time around. Old and New, Threat Level Midnight, game number 3. It's J-Mac inbound and Doug one more time here in the EMEA region today, as we see which of these two teams is going to advance to be 2-0. Would be 1 game away, 1 set from potentially being in that top 2 qualifier. Or I'm sorry, these are the 1 or the 0-1 teams. I had to remember, you know, we were watching all the top side of the bracket. These are actually the 0-1 teams, which is crazy just how competitive some of these matchups can be down over the lower end. So technically these teams fighting for that 1-1 spot to try and elevate themselves forward. Losing team then gets put on threat of elimination next week.
Yeah, and getting to that 1-1 slot, I think, is just so important, because nobody wants to be 0-2, have 3 stressful matches in a row if you're winning all of them. So important, best of 3 to win this 3rd game. And Cryonic taking this Neath, which is, I'm glad we're seeing Cryonic off of both the Hecate and the Morgan. I think Neath is a character that you will be effective kind of no matter what. And I think he has made some questionable decisions in team fights, and I think it's good to just kind of reset him, get him on an easier character, and just have him play this easy style of just Neath ulting people. On the opposite, well, on the same side, but on the other backliner, Valerian's played 2 Neath games in a row. How is his positioning going to be with this auto attacker comparatively to the ability-based Neath? How is his positioning going to look? How is he going to match up with these 1v1s with Matheo? Because Matheo actually sold him last game. So a few things to keep your eye on. How is it going to play out with those 2 backliners on TLM?
Your right tower is under attack.
We saw a bit of a group up in the early, but no fight. No full grouping just yet. A little bit of a battle over this mid camp, this mid-rotating camp. Has kind of become a hot contingency point for these 2 mid laners. It seems that Dutch Whisper are able to get the last hit this time and secure that buff for themselves. Remember, those do play towards your infamy system as well by leveling up your own buffs for dropping those. Game Hunter stunned out in the soul lane, and quite a big burst of damage from Distortion, who is, for the first time this game, not going to be playing an Anubis. Instead, playing on the Odin, as the Anubis was banned away. Dutch Whisper, they may have gotten the buff, but they will just barely live with their life. Blink in by Loki on Ice Cold. Not going to get quite enough damage. It's hit the TP back by Archie. Level 3 has access to the entire kit and will put it to good use. First blood for threat level Midnight, taking down the jungler.
And what a crazy rotation there by Sasuke. The actual invisibility by Ice Cold was caught by that stun in the solo lane. In the solo lane, Game Hunter gets the solo onto Distortion. So Game Hunter on this Mordred, not a super high prio pick. It's seeming a little bit more picks now, but he gets that 1v1 onto probably widely considered the best solo laner in Odin.
Distortion will be able to teleport back, so not going to be missing out on too much. I believe Archie rotates over, gets the credit for the wave. Distortion's just going to jump right back in. No fear even going down. And it will be the Totem of Ku going the way of TLM. We haven't really talked about it because it functions very similarly to how at least the Warhorn did. It's just now a slightly different level of interaction that goes on in the solo lane for it.
Yeah, instead of capturing the Warhorn, you now have to hit the totem like you did in Smite 1. It is a meaningful change for the movement speed, I think. But mana's not really been too much of an issue. Most of the time, you're not running out of mana. A lot of items are giving MP5. A lot of base MP5 is enough where you're not worried about that. But it's also still buffing the waves, which is I think it's a really underutilized part of Smite 2 so far. I think some teams do make use. Actually, Kane maybe getting caught out.
And a World Weaver catches them out. The double knockup, not quite enough. Cryonic with the Bluestone tick is what's going to get the final bit of damage on the Kane. So that's a second kill for TLM. Invade towards the purple buff. Looks like that wasn't successful from Sasuke. Not able to guarantee that one for themselves. Either that or they decide to leave it on the ground. One of the two there. TLM just playing this aggressive style, going for these back camp invades, trying to grab any bit of farm away from Olden New that they can.
And this is good. I think that's showing that TLM is still comfortable. They had an early lead last game on the left side. Yes, the Anubis was behind, but it ended up not really mattering. I think this shows that TLM is still thinking that they're the better team, which is very good that they have that confidence to still make plays. There is a slight worry that I have with the Susano. No beads, no Aegis, and there is a lot of heavy CC on the side of Olden New. If he gets caught by a Loki stun, if he gets hit by Game Hunter's ultimate, a taunt, there is just one-shot potential on that.
Oracles, I believe, split 1-1. Cryonic got a backflip away, but it's been wide open in the game. We saw this a lot before, and this direct matchup where Hecate versus Neath is how long can I wait before I have to bait out a backflip from the Neath, because you know where that landing spot is going to be, and almost every single time without beads, it's just a guaranteed pullback.
And especially with how hot Dutch Whisperer was in the last game with his ultimates, he wasn't missing very many times, and if he was just kind of throwing it out just to see what he could find. I'm glad that they got him this again. One ultimate down and it's already looking good. So Dutch Whisperer, again, as a mage player, you're not supposed to dominate this early portion. You're farming for the late game, and we saw how much damage just a 1-2 combo would do late. This is I want to try to get kills with my ultimate, maybe get a couple picks, but I'm mostly playing for the late game.
I want to see how this Hunter matchup continues to evolve over the course of this game between these two carries. I mean, Valerian has mostly kind of just been playing this ability burst style of carry. This is the first time this game that we're seeing them go in towards more of the traditional carry strength build where you're fighting tooth and nail for crits. Speaking of, though, Dutch Whisperer gets some bailout from Kane. Defender of Olympus used just to provide them that extra level of shell, that extra level of safety on top of their Phantom Shell. Dash taunt. Finds home on a Cryonic. Gets the backflip away. Cryonic will be fine for the time. Still has that Bacchus standing by for that extra level of peel.
My favorite thing about Smite 2 so far is just seeing how different characters are itemized. Actually, a potential solo in left, but ultimate available for Jing. The ultimate's traded over there, and a play in right lane also.
Body blocks the ultimate. I don't think Game Hunter wanted the stop there. Ice Cold able to get a kill on NVB Sasuke. Typhoon lands on top of Game Hunter, but he's just tanky enough. Stuck inside the Odin cage, but a Phantom Shell bails them out. Back to the safety of the tier 1 tower. As mentioned, finding a pick in mid is Ice Cold up against NVB Sasuke. And now for a camp invade. Red stolen away by old and new. In a game essentially dead even. Only 500 gold between the two.
Also, Game Hunter living that gank. Also very good. Get that win in mid and don't lose in another lane is very big. But back to what I was saying about builds, I think it's interesting to see how different players and different characters are looking to itemize in this new game. Breastplate on the Odin, wants to be able to spam abilities. Mordred, not really as spammy, wants to go for this Mystical Mail for that trading potential. And this kind of goes down the entire board of Hydras versus Jotuns. One is for cooldown, one is for a lot more burst. It's unique in how you're going to play around these characters, how you're going to play around team fights. With this Jotuns, you're going to be looking to just pull beads, look to try to get kills. With this Hydras, it's just this one fight where you're trying to get this one shot with your next auto after an ability. It is an interesting thing to see with a new game, and I love just seeing how players itemize and what they're looking to build. Like, even going down to support, we have a Breastplate Athena, same item as the Odin, and then the Talisman of Purification. Like, there's so many cool things to try around and play with.
Dash by Valerian finds their target in the bush, but now there's a couple more players from old and new who have joined the fight. Taunt catches one, pulls the Aegis away. Typhoon's gonna give a little bit of extra room for Valerian, but with 3 people chasing him down, his dash already on cooldown, not much further that he can go to escape. TLM down 2 to 4 in kills, still slightly up in the gold, but that might just change here as old and new are rotating over to the Gold Fury. Gotta keep your eyes though on MVP. Sasuke has rotated over. Remember, no Sunders. This is all just who has the better secure or who can get some better picks. Dash taunt, able to pull a couple away, but the Fury has been reset. Picked back up as Dutch Whisperer has rotated in. He's got a balance on a nice edge between these two teams. 80 gold damage left, and Matthew's able to get it. Open the gates, doesn't find a target, but it separates the team fight for just a little more. But all this time, Valerian, who had been dead, has respawned and rejoined the fight.
Gold Fury confirmed, though, no kills. Little worrisome at some point. On a nice edge, Bacchus ult barely misses the secure. I think he was just a little bit too far away. Gold Fury picked up, though, by old and new. Still a very close game. And when that first Gold Fury goes down, if that doesn't really push out you to a massive lead, you're still mostly just looking for picks. So Ice Cold with this Athena, going to be looking for beads, going to be looking for picks around mid. We've seen a lot of actual plays being made around Kane. He's happily looking to dash taunt right on time, looking for a dash taunt in mid. And it's kind of keeping Cryonic and Valerian having to think a little bit more about when they want to walk up, because Valerian dashed looking for the 1v1 onto Matheo slightly before that Gold Fury. It's how he ended up dying. He had no dash available when the Loki looked for the gank, because the Athena also had the global ultimate to follow up. So a little bit of maybe changing the idea of what Valerian wants to do, what Cryonic wants to do. Maybe they have to be a lot more smarter with their dashes, with their engage, because Kane is looking for plays all over the map.
Can afford it to him just by nature of being an Athena. Press 4, go wherever you want to be with the rest of your team. It's working out well for old and new. both in game 2, now here in game 3. With the lack of beads and purification of some sort, it can kick off fights just like these. Typhoon, it's Dutch Whisperer, but there's the shield from Defender of Olympus to keep them alive, and instead it turns the tides right back in favor of old and new. Immediately, see a low health bar on Archie forced to back out of the team fight, head back to base. And Dutch Whisperer, who was the first person they wanted to initiate on, didn't even have Phantom Shell available. That was just all the shield from this Athena keeping them alive.
And I've been loving Dutch Whisperer's positioning on this Hecate. It's threatening enough where he can hit you with a 2-1 combo and you really can't return it. And it's also not too far forward where he's not going to be, or he's going to be out of position. And with Valerian actually looking for that dash on left, he's getting very low. Almost with the ultimate trade, but as you see, Game Hunter's TP'd in.
Valerian didn't even recognize it until that third ability misses Pursue. The weak doesn't have the juke boots. And as soon as he lands on the ground, Game Hunter will take down the carry. A fast teleport. And for a moment, it even looked like Distortion. I don't know if they just didn't see that they teleported there, open the gates used defensively to get under the tier 1 tower, but I don't know if Distortion just didn't notice that Game Hunter went to the teleporter, didn't see that that's the direction he walked, but that should have been a call out for Valerian to back away. As Kane finds a double taunt under the tier 1 tower. Not much follow-up beyond there. Even Dutch Whisperer, not really too worried about what TLM can do. They've gotten another pick on that carry for the side of old and new. And that seems to be where they're finding their success on old and new, is keep Dutch Whisperer alive and just keep letting Matteo free farm to this late game. It's a 1v1 in solo, probably will fizzle out at this point. It's not much to kill the two of them.
Gold Fury spawning pretty soon. Looks to be the next point of contention. But before that, the Naga, which is actually another fight happening in left. Valerian has the ult. Matheo's ult is just coming up. A lot of crits coming through.
Crit. One more is needed. He throws the persistent over the wall for the kill, and Ice Cold gets an extra one with the help of it. 2 kills for the side of old and new in this fight alone. Run as fast as your little legs can take you, MVP Sasuke. You're getting chased out by Ice Cold and by Kane. Dutch Whisperer going down is good news for TLM, but what did it cost them? 3 deaths across the map.
And a massive win there by old and new. 3 kills, Gold Fury is available, and they also got the Naga across the board. Really big, but now they have to look to push this lead. 3 still dead. Well, 2 just spawned. Cryonic still dead for a little bit. Maybe potential for a Gold Fury here still, but the Gold is in a nice lead. That is a good play. Really heads up play by both Kane and Ice Cold, but it's throwing off your timing to do this Gold Fury. Like, that was just really greedy for no reason by Kane, because now it's just slowing down that potential to walk to this Gold Fury. You've got this 4K gold lead, just about 3,500, and you're not going to be able to push it for a bit because of how just slow he got out of base. When you get these leads, you need to kind of play him a little bit quicker, because if you're just sitting there farming and the enemy team is just sitting there farming, you're not pushing your lead and the game is going to late game, and eventually there's a point where you don't get any stronger. So maybe just a little too greedy by Kane there.
Cryonic backflips into a wall. Beads are there, but beads don't save you from damage. As Dutch Whisperer, only 2.5-ish items deep into the build, already seeing the level of threat that this Hecate has for old and new once again. Fury started up by old and new. This is the second one of the game that will go their way, which means we are 1 away from the startup spawns of Ancient Fury. And old and new have a Pursue the Weak from Game Hunter. Chases under the tier 1 tower. On landing, open the gate, pull him back in, knock him back down. The combo from game 2 coming back again for game number 3. Shell is used by Matteo. Does he have the dash? He doesn't have the dash to keep the chase up. Valerian, saved by the graces of lack of mobility from Matteo, will allow them to stay alive, but their tier 1 tower cannot say the same in mid lane. That's knocked away by old and new once again.
And I think we're starting to see the value of this Shell in the 1v1 and duo lane. Matteo can just go forward and at any point pop Shell and keep trading. Valerian opted for the Aegis, which means you can't auto attack, you can't use abilities, you just become immune to all damage. And I think awkward play there by Archie. The rest of the team's not ready.
Okay, Archie, throw out a Typhoon from the middle of the jungle, walks back into lane, nearly dies because of it, and now it's caused the rest of his team to have to try and bail him out. He's alive. Couple low health bars for old and new, but Kane always ready to go. Triple pull in, but Archie, you just got bailed out, and you're falling back down from it. Ice cold. You can't get spotted out here. One more bit of damage is all it takes, and MVP Sasuke returns the favor with a 1-for-1 trade out in the kill. Taunt is good from Kane, and Dutch Whisper's got perfect follow-up. Double kill for the mid lane Akate, and wants a little bit more. Throws out another spell leader, stun out, jumped on, open the gate, throws 2 under the tower, and he'll follow right back in. Game Hunter gets 1. Matteo, another. Dutch Whisper has got to be pulled away from this Akate because their impact on this game is just insanity at this point. And Game Hunter's not done with this fight. He gets transferred into a pig and just W keys with that mystical mail for a 5th kill and a delayed deicide.
J-Mac, this Akate's a problem. That is what I have gotten from this game.
Just
Dutch
ban
Whisper, it's something where you can't allow him to have this. You go back to that first game, what we saw from Dutch Whisper on the Morgan, he was comfortable. You go to the Dutch Whisper on Hakate, he is winning his team this game with the abilities, the positioning, the ultimates. He got the kills in mid, and then he also just still had the wherewithal to know where tower was, know to toss them into the tower, not go right away, delayed a few seconds. Beautiful play there by Dutch Whisper, and just the entirety of old and new is just getting so much more comfortable in these team fights. It seems like they're all on the same page. We even see Matteo looking to dash in whenever he can find the opportunity to. Kane willing to die, but it's not like he's dying for nothing. He's dying to get trades onto value targets. He's trading his life for Cryonic, which is very, very strong. And eyes on Cryonic, double stack build. It is one of the most strongest late game OP builds in the entire game. The issue is you have to get to late game. The issue is you need to get stacks. J-Mac, he had a first item book of Thoth, and he is still only at 40 stacks. Dutch Whisperer finished his like 15 minutes ago.
Tough position for Chronic, but they've also been the primary target for old and new. Bait out backflip, easy 1-2, drop it open the gate at their feet and bring them right back in. So TLM gotta get their farm game up a little higher because they're currently sitting 8,000 gold down to old and new, who have just had perfect synergy more than anything out here. They figured out what's work. I'm gonna dash taunt with Kane, that's gonna pull their purification, and then we're just gonna follow up with an open the gate as soon as anybody uses their mobility. We know where they're gonna go. And TLM, even in that last fight, you look at the questionable decisions that Archie had made. Like, Archie stood in the jungle, threw out a Typhoon, hit 3-4 people, and that's awesome, that's great. But then he walks back in so casually in the middle of 3 people and nearly dies, and it forces this very awkward effect of TLM having to go back in and bail him out. And it didn't look like it was going to be great at first, but through the miracles of Dutch Whisperer, his team is the one that's able to get the big turnaround. Meanwhile, right side Phoenix, double knockup for Persistent Gust, open the gate, pull one right back in, dash as far as you can. Valerian only barely lives. Dutch Whisperer just off the mark with that spell leader as Game Hunter cleans up the kill onto Cryonic. Game Hunter goes down, but it's met with a second one. Ice Cold picks up one. Dutch Whisper, another one. Dutch Whisperer in danger, but shield after shield after shield keeps him up. Double kill for Kane. Deicide for old and new. And threat level Midnight will fall. Old and new with the 2-1 win here to move on to the 1-1 bracket.
And congratulations to old and new. What a perfect team fight to end the game. Game Hunter looking to maybe go a little bit too deep, but it doesn't end up mattering because Dutch Whisper is just doing so much damage. Anybody who even glances at him and is in range is dying, and he's even willing to walk through the entire Phoenix before it's dead. He was so confident, and really good shell usage by the entire team to keep him alive. Overall, old and new, that first game to that third game felt like I was watching a Cinderella story of how much they learned through those games. They were even getting dominated in that second game until they realized, Game Hunter, start these fights, Dutch Whisperer could hit the biggest Takate ult, pull everyone back in, and it just became this really fluid, easy combo. And they even used like the Athena combos with it. The Jing Wei on Matheo from game 1 to game 3 was just so much better and so much different. Just old and new from game 1 to game 3, night and day difference. Very good job by them.
Was just about the same. Old and new, just start calling them night and day because the level of change from game 1 to by the end of game 3 really was just completely different. It really felt like about that 20-minute mark of game 2 is where everything started clicking for old and new. They realized, okay, well, Game Hunter can start a fight, Kane can start a fight. What if we just have them start 2 separate fights and pull people out to give us a man advantage? If Game Hunter can pick up 2 people, we can start beating on the other 3, and then as soon as they land, use that open the gate ultimate, pull them out of position, and then we can just keep that fight going because now they're half HP by the time they're teleported to us. The other people have already been beaten senseless numerous times throughout all of these fights. This combo that they have put together on the side of old and new, this Mordred plus Sakate, or even just Athena Mordred as kind of your frontliners, has worked out so well for this team. That's the end of this set. We still have more matchups to go, and we still have a bracket as well available to you to kind of see what the trajectory is for some of these teams. As mentioned, threat level Midnight, a loss here now puts them down in what I've officially called the red box. It's the danger box you don't want to be in because one more loss means that you are out of the Swiss bracket, at least for old and new. And for Scorps, they found themselves some wins and will be up in the 1-1. Smoke Break did manage to bring things back in their set off screen, and so they'll be joining up into the green box along with Team Risk. Meanwhile, Tithonic and Chase the Enemy, they're going to be dropping down into the 1-1, so they still have a little bit of cushion. But as I mentioned, we're not done today. And as I said kind of at the top of the game, NA is still going on. We haven't missed any of the matches that you see here on air. It will be Food Drive for Globe versus Scrumptious for our first set will be happening after we have concluded this portion of the segment, and then Garth's Goblins and Name in Progress to round out our day here on Saturday. And then you can see for Sunday, we got Cowabunga versus Secret Service, and maybe one of the big matches of the week, Team Name but with 5 M's versus Borscht, to see who will be able to move on and get themselves to that 2-0 side of the bracket. So no eliminations this week, no qualifications this week, but it's building up into some really big potential matchups next week because once we hit week 3, we're going to qualify 2 teams to skip stage 3 and go all the way to stage 4, which then puts them right at that opportunity to be able to qualify up to the LAN here at the hi-rez Studios headquarters, and then puts them on the potential burn for Vegas. So finding your 3 wins now in the Swiss stage means that you don't have to go through that extra step and that extra level to be able to get to the qualification, to get to that playoff style of stage. So for these teams right now that are just on the edge of hitting that 2-0 or have already made the 2-0, have made their track to Vegas just that much faster.
And you say you're excited for the Team M versus Borscht. This next upcoming game, Food Drive for Globe versus Scrumptious, it's going to be a really good one. We've seen some very good play by Food Drive for Globe. They even made it to, I think it was the finals in week 1. Maybe it was just semifinals, but they made it very far. And so this is going to be a very competitive game. And it's, as you said, it's just going to get better with all these games. The teams are going to be 2-0, going to be playing each other. The Swiss bracket is such a good setup for just phenomenal games.
It's a lot of fun, and there's still plenty more to go. We're going to take it to a quick break, and when we come back, we've got the North American rounds ready to go.